Please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. Our program will begin now.
We're talking about the supply chain behind making shows.
Where are we going? Barbie Land!
The boundaries of the entertainment world are blurring, and they're all scrambling for the same thing. Screen time. The stakes have never been higher for Hollywood, and navigating this multiverse is no simple task. Across film, television, gaming, technology, sports, music, and more. It's culture, business, technology, converged. Welcome to Bloomberg Screentime. Please welcome to the stage Screentime host and Bloomberg managing editor of media and entertainment, Lucas Shaw.
Hey there. Thank you, everybody. And for those of you here last night, welcome back for day 2. Those of you here for the first time, thanks for coming. If you missed last night, it got pretty heated, at least at the start. Thanks to Ari Emanuel. He called for the dismissal of the leader of Israel. He called his competitors at CAA, I don't know if it was morally bankrupt, morally corrupt. It was something not very nice. The good news for you guys is that we have CAA CEO Brian Lord here later today. I have a feeling he's going to have some thoughts on it, but just a hunch. Last night, after we wrapped, or around when we wrapped, there was also some news that the talks between Hollywood studios and the Actors Guild broke down. That's not great for this town. Our next speaker will address that to the best of his abilities. For those that don't know me, my name is Lucas Shaw. I'm the managing editor for Media and Entertainment at Bloomberg, which again, I think they announced, but I keep saying it anyways. And I write a newsletter called Screentime, to which I hope you subscribe. I oversee a team of very talented people, many of whom you'll be hearing from today. Some of them are moderating sessions. Some of them will appear in various places. You know, when I tell people what I cover, what the folks who work with me cover, the first thing a lot of them think of, I have to say, is still TMZ. They they hear business and media. They think Hollywood. They think celebrity gossip. We don't really do the gossip thing. We do cover Hollywood, but my team covers everything from film to TV, music, podcasting, video games, sports, social media. You know, the internet has transformed culture in a way that we're still coming to grips with. You know, you look at it and streaming has in many ways replaced television or replaced cable as the primary way people watch TV. But the cable networks still generate most of the money, with the exception of Netflix. Most streaming services lose money. Video gaming is bigger than the film business and the music business combined and gets almost none of the coverage. And pretty much all of you could be a content creator if you wanted to. Now, it's not clear how this is all going to result. And so we thought it would be a good idea to have an event and talk about it, try and figure out where we're headed. I don't have the answer, but a lot of the people who are speaking probably will, or at least they think they do. We've got a great lineup. We're kicking things off with Ted, the co-CEO of Netflix. Then we'll have Neal Mohan, the CEO of YouTube, and the great programming will stretch throughout the day. Unlike yesterday, we have simultaneous programming, so we also have a bunch of stuff happening on the stage right across there. I forget if it's Studio Theater. I apologize, Chelsea, but you'll figure it out. I'll mostly be here, but I am taping a live episode of Matt Bellany's hit podcast, The Town, on that stage. And we've also got AI demos, data stuff. It's going to be great. And then we have community curators in the lounge back there. Some really interesting conversations around investing, documentary filmmaking, executives from gaming. So I hope that you will check all of that out. Now, before we get started with the programming on this stage, I do want to run through a few things. I want to start by thanking our 2 presenting sponsors, BMW of North America. Yeah, just give it up. And the Red Sea Film Foundation. I also want to thank our supporting sponsor, Amazon Music. For those, stick around after the end of the day because we have a live musical performance that they have helped bring together. It's going to be great. Now, this is a good time to take out your phones, if you wouldn't mind. You got your Wi-Fi information on both those screens. It should also be on your badge. And then we are also going to be running kind of polls and taking audience questions throughout the day. You can access that through this QR code. I screwed up and I asked you guys all to participate in a poll yesterday, which I then did not reveal the results of. But we rectified that with Donna Langley. We got her to talk about which 80s horror movies she would most like to remake. Her answer was the same as your answer, which was Gremlins. I was not getting to the poll yet, but here we are. Today's poll, if you could watch one streaming service for the next year, which of these would it be? Keep in mind that we do have someone from Netflix right over there. But please go in, vote here, and we'll look at the results in a second. A couple other things. Social. You can follow along. I believe the hashtag is Bloomberg Screentime, although a lot of people yesterday were just doing screen time. So whatever floats your boat there. You can follow us on all social platforms at Bloomberg Live. And if you are one of the people in here who's lucky enough to have a Bloomberg terminal, you can follow on Live Go. Last QR code of the day, there is an app. As it says, you can talk to people. There's an agenda. There's a map. Super useful. And I think that means it's time for our poll results. YouTube, oh man, YouTube wins. Netflix is second. And this is fairly accurate with, I'd say now people are tilting it towards Netflix. If you follow Nielsen's The Gauge, YouTube and Netflix are the two most popular streaming services in the US. And then if you factor in globally, they're way ahead of everybody else. So that makes a lot of sense. That brings us to the start of our program. Much like with Ari, we got a sizzle reel for Ted. He started his career, or he'll correct me, at least he started his career in Hollywood, I think, working for a regional video rental chain, and he's now one of the most powerful people in this town. So please welcome Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos. No sizzle. Okay, split that one up.
How you doing? Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I know you've had a busy.
Yeah. So how was your week?
My week was pretty good.
Yeah. Hey, if you don't mind, before we start, I just wanted to say something real quick that's just on top of mind and in my heart right now. We're here talking a lot about the future of media. A lot of folks in Israel are still reeling from this horrific terrorist attack by Hamas. And I'm reminded all the time when these things happen how small the world is. Many of us in this room probably have lost friends and family, or friends and family of friends and family. And at Netflix, one of the victims of this terrorist attack, Lior Weitzman, was working on our first Netflix original series there called Bros. He worked in the sound department. On Saturday morning, out biking, stopped and texted his wife that there's been a shooting. And that's the last you heard from him, because he was a victim of that terrorist attack. It's a horrific thing that's happened in the world. And just want to say our hearts are out to Lior and his family and anyone else who may have lost somebody in Israel on Saturday.
Thank you for sharing that. I don't mean to.
Lior, by the way, was fantastic. I mean, he worked on Fauda and Tehran at Apple, and
that made me even though this is your first Israeli original
that we produced, yeah.
Because Fauda came out.
Fauda was a co-production.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm just curious. What I assume then production has shut down on that show. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging that.
No, as with yesterday with Ari, there's no seamless way to transition out of that.
Yeah,
I'm going to do my best.
Hope that did not break rhythm.
Not at all.
Yeah.
One of the themes of this event, one of the big things happening in the industry, obviously, is we're in sort of a ceaseless moment of kind of tumult and change. A lot of people, or a lot of that comes from companies like YouTube. And we've reached this point where it's clear that sort of streaming has won, right? Or at least it is slowly replacing television as the dominant way that people watch.
I mean, ultimately, consumers decide what wins, right? And I think they're saying loud and clear that they like the control and the choice of streaming.
But there remains a pretty healthy amount of skepticism as to streaming as a business. Now, you guys are profitable. Some people would say, and we can debate this, that you are less profitable than the most profitable TV networks were. Pretty much every other media company that is trying to compete with you is losing money trying to do that. So give me the case for why you think streaming is already a good business and will only get better going forward.
Yeah, look, I think it's a great business, and I think it's in its infancy. We've been streaming for, in some form for about 16 years. And our original content initiative, we just passed our 10th anniversary of our first original show. So if you think about it in that way, and you think about the network business that's been at it for 75 plus years, and before that, most of those were radio networks. So they've been at this for a very long time. And I think that ultimately these consumer-driven things cause businesses to react and reshuffle. And I'd say consumer-driven because now we didn't just put something on there and say, now this is how you have to watch. When we started doing this, streaming actually, I would say, saved this industry because where we were heading at that time, remember when we started this business of streaming, we started licensing content from the networks. And at the time that we were licensing, we could only get what was available, which was nothing. So we were licensing from the bottom of the barrel, things that had no revenue for anybody, shows that didn't get to syndication, things that weren't otherwise sold.
Kind of like what Tubi and some of the AVOD services did when they came around, where they started.
And we gave it away with the DVD business. And it was, you got what you paid for back then. But I'd say what happened was that's created a whole new revenue stream for the networks and the studios. It created a whole new residual revenue stream for actors and performers who performed in those projects that were sitting on the shelf. And really kind of got the ball rolling in a way that, that we've, obviously I think these things can take decades to build, but with their big, meaningful businesses, that's a good investment. And I'd say good business for us, it's $32 billion of revenue and $6 billion of profit. And we've been growing the business pretty dramatically and pretty quick. We grew pretty quickly. We're not growing as fast right now as we want to, but we are still growing the business.
So I'm curious on that point, because you guys in your remarks, I think your last earnings report talked about how you still aren't growing as quickly as you'd like to. There was a point in time where every year, like clockwork, Netflix would basically add 25 million to 30 million customers.
Yeah.
That obviously post-pandemic has come way down.
Yeah.
What are you doing about that? And do you think you can get back to the level of growth you were at 3-4 years ago?
Look, I think the key to it is growing growing revenue, and I think for us that's a combination of putting a great product on the board. When you talk about is streaming a good business, it is if you do it well. And I think I would say the team at Netflix in terms of the programming, Bella Bajari and her team are phenomenal at focusing on what people love, and their creative team is great at delivering for what people love. The team that delivers the UI experience, remember, something that happens at Netflix that's almost impossible anywhere else, and I'd say because of our distribution footprint and our recommendations, that you have the ability, if you're telling a story from Korea, to be the biggest television show in the world. That can only happen on Netflix. It's not just taking obscurity and making it big. Imagine somebody as big as David Beckham, who releases his documentary on Netflix and in days grows his social media following by 500,000 people. And I think this happens over and over again, the combination of our distribution footprint and recommendation, and which I think is what distinguishes the business. And the way you grow it is by keep doing that better and better. And the opportunity to grow it is enormous. We're about 10% of screen time when people are watching on their TV and at home, about 10% in our most penetrated markets like the U.S. Around the world, we're significantly smaller. We're about 5% of consumer spending in the businesses that we're in, which is paid television, advertising-supported television, and games. And so as you look at that, and we're just in our infancy in those businesses, and about 5% of consumer spending. So we've a ton of room to grow revenue from here. And I'd say that we're pretty underpriced based on those kind of statistics of 10% of screen time and 5% of revenue. So I think that there's plenty of room to grow as long as we're have a high level of satisfaction with the product. The consumers, it's a one-button easy cancel service. So if you're not loving the new season of The Crown when it comes out in November, you jump. So we know we have a constant feedback circle with our feedback loop with our members that if we're not pleasing them, they jump.
Yeah. So you said underpriced. When is the next Netflix price increase coming?
Nothing to announce, but our pricing philosophy has not changed, which is we have to add more value to the consumer, and then we come back and ask them to pay a little bit more for it if they agree. So it's been a successful formula.
Have you done, on that point, what does your research tell you about sort of the upper limit of what people would pay before they start to really question the value of Netflix?
We really don't spend that much time on trying to figure out how much we'll get you to pay, because I think it's a fluid thing. So basically, if you're delivering you have to continue to deliver. So you can't. It's all in the hypothetical. So what I don't want to do is come in at a period of great strength and someone say, "Oh, I'll pay anything because I'm in the middle of the new season of Stranger Things," and then we have to come back. But we do it every week. So a lot of these services and a lot of that are out there, they get a couple of hours of engagement a month. We get a couple of hours engagement a day, and that to me is like there's all this mystery around what is success in streaming. It's engagement. It is how much time do people spend on the servers, because that tells you how much they'll pay and how long they'll stick around.
So I'm curious, you mentioned the success, which has been a subject of a lot of discussion over the years with regard to with you guys and streaming more broadly, as it feels like people have less visibility into what works and aren't really sure what you guys think matters.
Yeah.
What are the metrics for Netflix that are most important when evaluating a show or a movie?
Yeah, you guys take us to task a lot on this transparency issue. I would say, look, definitely relative to peers, we're incredibly transparent. And we're completely transparent with our producers, so they know exactly the viewing data. And then we're going through things like the top 10 and through things like we publish the viewing hours of the top shows. And we're definitely heading towards a much more transparent time in the business. Streaming itself is not that exotic anymore. And every other segment of the business does have Nielsen ratings or box office reports or the New York Times bestseller list, all those things. So we're heading towards that for sure. To a time we'll be fully transparent on viewing data.
Does that mean it's... sorry, go ahead.
So that will demystify this for a lot of people, which is basically what I care about the most is relative to what it costs to put on the air, are people watching? And when they push play, do they stay? So if they push play and then drop out in the second or third season or third episode,
which is completion rate for...
Yeah. So those things all matter, but they all add up to the same thing, which is engagement. So I think all the data is really there. You might have to triangulate it a little bit to get to it, but all the data is really there.
What was the toughest cancellation decision you've had recently?
They're all tough. The reason why, because I think that people have got a real fandom. They really love these. Some people really love all these shows, even if the rest of the world doesn't agree with them. So for them, that's why you see sometimes these very obscure shows, and you hear very loud campaigns about stop the cancellations, because they have such an intense relationship with it. That's why I love this business so much. I relate to it. Sometimes my personal taste is really far outside of the norm, and what I've been decent at over the years, and pick people who are good at doing this. But when I look at it, I think it's if I was programming to my taste, we'd be very small. So we're trying to program to the world's taste. But they're all hard. They really are all difficult decisions to make because people love these shows so much, and there's some things are just a puzzle. You scratch your head, but relative to what it costs to put on the air. Did we pick a good show? Did we execute on it well? And did we pay the right price to make it?
Right.
So
I'm wondering, you talked about the world's taste, and that has, I think, as Netflix has expanded, your approach to programming has evolved as well. You also mentioned that you started programming, it's been about 10 years. Would you say and when you started, that was when a lot of people talked about sort of the golden age of TV, right? This was coming out of Mad Men and Breaking Bad and some other shows. Then we got ushered into the era of peak TV, where there was just more and more being made. Do you think that the film and TV being made now is better or worse than it was when you started?
I think it's better because there's more of it at a very high quality. So basically, there's more to choose from. I think there's something really romantic about prestige TV. That's why we do a lot of it too. Beef this year, when you see the new season of The Crown, is probably the most ambitious works you've ever seen on television and maybe in the history of television. So I do think that there's part of that that's really important. What I'd love to do is take those shows that are incredibly well executed, critically acclaimed, award-winning, and popular. And I think things like Beef. I'm really excited about Beef this year because this is one of the critics wrote it that it's the most popular piece of art of the decade, and that's a really great place to be. So it's something that people really love and admire. And I think about critics and awards as a constituency, a group of influencers, and what they like is important. But so is what the audience likes. And that's what really drives us.
Right.
Yeah. But I do think there's every once in a while you think, oh, what's going on with TV, and then something fantastic lands every time. And I think the more times, the more shots on goal you get at it, the more likely you're going to get something that really breaks through. And sometimes it's completely unintuitive. Squid Game did nothing to be a global show. It's made for Korea. It's pure Korean cinema in the form of a TV series. and it is the most watched show on Netflix in Netflix history, and likely the history of television in the time period that it was on.
Right. You guys have I mean, you still program more than anyone else, basically, to your point. You put out multiple new pieces of content every week. Others do not. But you have leveled that off. I think we showed the chart earlier where you sort of hit like 17, 18 billion and said, okay, that's a good amount. It's a good amount for now. Like I said, I think as we continue to accelerate revenue and subscriber growth, we'll continue to add to that too. Got it.
Yeah.
As you see some of your peers pull back a little bit, especially overseas, do you think that's a mistake?
Look, it's hard for people to remember that we're a big global company. So 2/3 of our subscribers are outside of the U.S. And I think it's one thing we first started doing this. I thought it was kind of an unusual figure that about 80% of television viewing around the world was U.S. content, and we're 5% of the population. And I figured it probably isn't a taste thing; it's probably a distribution thing. People didn't have access to, or certain markets may not have had the scale to produce the way that Japan did or Korea did, which had very big local audiences and very big local taste. So they didn't care that much for international, including U.S. content, but mostly because they didn't have access to it. The same way we didn't have access to Korean shows before people fell in love with Squid Game, or Spanish television before they fell in love with La Casa de Papel, or French TV like Lupin. So, and I just think that keeps happening over and over again because you can produce, as long as you really focus on the local audience, you can produce at a slightly larger scale, because if you really kill it, you can get out there globally. And that the ability that we brought that to the table, and I do think for me, when I look at that, it's like I'm glad we're not pulling back. In fact, we're growing our production outside of the U.S. and in multiple languages. We produce in almost every language now, and so I feel like there's still a lot of room to grow there. So when I watch them pull out of it, I think it's because the streaming, while it is a very good business, it's a hard one. And it's one you have to do well, and you have to do it at scale. And it's really hard on legacy businesses trying to navigate that.
Yeah. One of the poll question that I mentioned I was going to ask that I'm happy to throw up there is, what do you think is going to be? This one is about, in the last year, your favorite series has come from one place, which I'd love to hear your answer on. But I'm also curious. South Korea has had kind of such a moment culturally over the last few years. Do you have a country that you think is the next South Korea?
I think a lot of people ask that because they think there was some path that we were on to make South Korea into this thing.
No, I'm not. It wasn't you. No. It was the country that really put a lot of resources behind it.
What I think is fascinating, I think in Mexico, I see it on the screen, so it's a little bit of a cheat, but the production ecosystem and the storytelling culture is phenomenal. And I think most American audiences think of Mexican TV as novellas, and I think most people think of Mexican movies like westerns and Cantinflas, and in fact, it's some of the most incredible storytellers and filmmakers in the world are in Mexico right now, and the ecosystem for it is getting bigger and bigger. So I'd keep an eye on Mexico.
Okay, we've made it far enough. I have to ask about the strike. Studios issued a statement last night saying that the gap between the AMPTP and the actors is too great, and that talks are no longer productive. Yeah. A lot of people thought that this would end quickly once you guys got the writers' deal done.
Me too.
So why isn't it?
Look, I'm going to let the statement speak for itself, if you don't mind. There's a lot of detail in the statement around the offers and the current state of it. I will say that I know Donna Langley was here yesterday. Donna and I and Bob Iger and David Zasloff have been at the table with SAG. We had very productive talks going. They kind of what happened last night is that they introduced this basically a levy on subscribers on top of this deal, which in each of the areas of the deal, which is all in the statement, you see historic highs in terms of the increases across the board. And we had offered a success-based bonus, meaning that we completely wrap our arms around the idea that...
Similar to what you offered the writers, or...?
Yeah, very similar. In fact, it will cost 4 to 5 times more to implement it with SAG because of the
number of people, yeah.
And that was rejected, and the counter was this levy on every subscriber. And prior to that was a levy on all revenue.
Where basically the union will take a certain amount of money for every subscriber to a service?
Correct. And originally it was to every penny of revenue.
Right.
And we said, look, we agree that we could entertain a success-based bonus, which led to this transparency issue that we were able to get to where we would share the viewing data with the guild. And like I said, that issue that resolved with the writers was not only accepted in the deal, but ratified by a 99% vote of the Writers Guild. So I know that all these guilds are not created equal, and they all have different needs and more bespoke needs. But like I said, that is one that worked, that rewarded success, which we agreed with. But a levy on top of our revenue or per subscriber with no insight into the revenue per subscriber or anything, it just felt like a bridge too far to add this deep into the negotiation.
Right. Now I'm curious. There were a couple of people yesterday who were telling.
I should say, by the way, this has been a very difficult time, obviously, doing this, and the goal here is to get people back to work. The goal is to get the town opened up. This is not just hurting our industry; it's hurting every other business that supports our industry, and not just in California, but it's been extremely painful in California. We are desperately trying to get folks back to work, and we've been at the table to do this. We pulled the group of CEOs together to sit at that table. All the CEOs of the MPTP have been involved in this every day. The four of us have been at the table, but everyone has been deeply engaged in this every day, treating it as with the same urgency that we did trying to get production open during COVID. We understand a deal has got to get made, and the one thing about it, why these deals can take a long time sometimes, is this is the one deal we will make. This is the deal that SAG knows they're going to make with us, and this is the deal we know we're going to make with them. It's just a matter of how we get there. And as long as we can have steady, progressive talks, it makes sense. But what happened last night was not steady or progressive.
When you resolve this, what do you think is going to be the impact on the business?
Well, you got to remember the prices escalate. The cost of content escalates, on a per performer or per title basis all the time. So this is going to work into the economics of that, and some of that is forecast to happen every time you have a new contract. So I don't know what'll happen because I think it'll happen company by company. We are not changing our spend forecast or any of those things. So we think that it will change incrementally the cost of content over time for sure.
Right. That is potentially where the price increase comes in.
Yeah, it wouldn't be just because of that, because obviously we've had in non-contract years we've had price increases too.
Yeah.
So remember, the reason why this is particularly troubling on the ask on the levy is that on top of all of the deal and all the improvements in the deal, this is also still a very competitive business. So you're paying top of market clearing price for all the talent involved in every show, above and below the line. So that's all still intact. So I just think, like I said, it's a part of the economics of the town is that and I think it's really important to pay people what they're worth. And I think the performance bonus really adds an enhancement to that because sometimes that success does drive a business.
Right. I'm curious, one of the things or over the last 12 to 18 months, you guys did two things that you had long said you would not do, which was
appear at Bloomberg.
What's the second one? I'm going to go with advertising and crackdown on password sharing. We'll do the easy one first.
Yes.
Password sharing. Anytime previously you guys have talked about this, there's been online uproar. When you initially started raising prices, you lost a bunch of customers. You seem to have instituted this with minimal disruption. It's worked very well. How the heck did that happen?
I hope it's a testimony to how much people love the product. So I think with on the paid sharing, basically what we ran into was in the U.S. we became nearly ubiquitous with users, and about a third of them were not paying. They were basically borrowing someone else's account. And so we went back to them and said, hey, we think you are seeing a lot of value for this. You want to have your own account? And we gave them some options. Advertising was a part of that, which gave them a lower price point option, but also gave them just different options to spin off an account for a relative or to get your own account. And a lot of folks have chose one or the other, and and we continue to grow in the market where we otherwise were pretty much fully penetrated. So it gave us a much bigger addressable market in the U.S. and around the world to go after. So
is that likely more of a short-term bump, or do you think it benefits
Well, it's a short-term bump, but it's a long-term bump, and those economics apply to the long-term membership. So that's why. But I think in that way it was a helpful thing for us, and like I said, I think it really was I think a testimony to the relationship the consumers have with Netflix and the programming on Netflix that they'd answer that poll pretty much the same as you did.
Yes. Although I'm curious, and I do want to get to advertising, but a common criticism of Netflix that you hear in the industry in LA, New York, people feel like the programming on it has gotten worse.
I think it's just there's more of it, and it's not all for you. So that's the truth. So I think when I look at that and say, in 10 years we've been doing this, 188 Emmy Awards, almost 1,000 nominations, 122, I believe, Oscar nominations and 22 wins, and including 8 Best Picture nominees, 2 last year. And I look at that and I think what people do see is that we've expanded the offering. So yes, we have Beef and Diplomat and Crown and all these programs. But we also have great action shows like Night Agent, which you see this emergence of Gabe Basso as a brand new action star, or a kind of a relentless action movie like Extraction and Extraction 2, or Mother with J-Lo. And they would say that when we first started, we only did a handful of shows, so people think, oh, they always made these real prestige shows like AMC, and that's all they did. And I said, yeah, that wasn't true then either. We also had a show called Hemlock Grove that people forgot about pretty quick, and those were in the earliest days of what we were doing. So I feel like we always were trying to get to the variety and breadth, and today we have incredible variety and breadth. And if you love Love is Blind, you would not say that Netflix programming got worse because you love Love is Blind. And it's a good show. If you love these reality dating shows, it's as good as it gets. And we weren't even doing reality programming 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people pick their personal taste and say, if I see other things that I'm not watching, I think that the service has changed. It hasn't changed; it's grown. Right. Yeah.
One of the other criticisms you get is that when the show, and I know you've already talked about why you think it's BS with social and all of that, but is that when shows come out, they don't land. And one of the things, or they don't create the same cultural impact. And one of the things that you guys have been doing, I think, to push against this a little bit, is you've started to create, toys and live experiences. You've got the Bridgerton Ball, and you've got the Stranger Things store, and all these different things. What is next for you in this area of building sort of moments and marketing campaigns around your projects?
Yeah, we have a consumer products group. Like other consumer products groups, it's really not, we don't focus that much on kind of revenue and profit on that business. It's a lot about building fandom. So it's a combination where kind of consumer product sales and marketing and publicity all kind of come together and help facilitate incredible fandom. So we do these experiences that are wildly, wildly popular. The one that people first probably took notice of was the Stranger Things drive-through that we did during COVID. And these were pretty decently priced tickets that people really show up for and really have an incredibly immersive experience with their favorite show. So it was in drive-through form with Stranger Things. We have several other Stranger Things experiences that are travel the world now. We have this Bridgerton Ball, which is people show up in costume and go to the Bridgerton Ball, and people love it so much they propose marriage in there. There's dozens of people that have proposed marriage in these events, and it's incredibly elaborate. When people show up, I'm like, where did you have that costume? I just had it laying around the house to go to the Bridgerton Ball. And this, we can go back one if you don't mind.
Yeah, we preempted.
Oh, I went in the wrong way. Okay, so this is where the next generation of this, that all these traveling experiences that we've been doing, we're going to pull them together and start to build out these more permanent experiences. This is a concept of something we're calling Netflix House. That will be full of these kind of permanent and traveling experiences and consumer experiences. There'll be food experiences that are basically taking what we've learned from all of these and putting them under one roof in several major cities around the world.
And they'll be permanent.
Here's the Bridgerton Ball. All those people in costumes, that's their own costumes. That's the escape room for La Casa de Papel, where people came, they got in costume, they did their thing. This is for a One Piece event. This is Netflix Bites, which is a restaurant experience we did here in LA. It was sold out the entire run of the restaurant, and there's the new Netflix Stranger Things experience. And this is the Doomfest, where this all came together as a big live event we did in Brazil a few months ago, where 25,000 people came out to meet all the stars of the new Netflix shows. So this is what that looked like.
What's the timetable on when the first Netflix house is going to open?
We're in the works of it now, so no timing to announce yet, but we're trying to get it open next year. Yeah.
Do you have a preference where the first one opens?
No, and we were just looking at major cities around the world, or some smaller markets too, where this could be, where you can really build up the fandom, where it's a little more novel to get an experience like this in your town.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we think it's one of these. It's not like don't think of it like Disneyland. Think of it as closer to City Walk, something you might go to several times a month, not just once every couple of years.
Are you going to have a movie theater?
Some will.
Really?
Yeah.
Showing Netflix movies?
Yeah.
This is my chance to ask your favorite question.
We're lucky. We live in LA, right? You can go to, pretty soon you'll be able to go to the historic Egyptian theater that we've just beautifully restored. It's ready to reopen.
But I have to ask, because Apple's about to put a Martin Scorsese movie on screens for 45 days before it's streaming. You did Scorsese's last movie. You negotiated possibly putting it on movie screens, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Do you think as you see Apple and Amazon move in on theaters a little more, will that competition change your strategy at all? Because if you want to work with certain filmmakers, they're going to demand it?
Look, I do. I mean, I try not to be cynical about the question. Because if people keep asking me, why don't you do things like everyone else does? And then I look at the financial results and I say, maybe this isn't what people want in a way. Because I've not been able to see, honestly, a direct correlation between the theatrical run and the demand in the second window. What I have seen is that theatrical run sometimes takes the most passionate fan out of the market. And the films don't tend to be any bigger because they were big in the box office or because they were in the box office already. It's just a different window of demand generation. And we meet that demand that we generate on Netflix. And that's our core business. So we do put movies in theaters. I mean, Irishman was on 900 screens. And I think Flower Moon's on like 3,000.
Right.
So when you look at it and say, 10 Oscar nominations for The Irishman, very successful on Netflix. It's one of our top movies of all time. So when I look at that and think and I don't see any discernible difference. We have a lot of pay one movies, that come on in that second window after the theater, and they don't necessarily perform bigger than our biggest original films do. So when I look at that and think that the theory that you have to put movies in the theaters to give, for some long stretch of time before you give it to your subscribers who paid to make the movie, right, with their subscription fee, I don't think the real payoff is in the favor of the consumer.
Right.
So that's why we really, again, consumer-driven. If you want to see this movie and you love it and you don't live in a major city, you have access to see it on opening day. That's really novel, and it opens up that distribution footprint, around the globe.
Okay, we'll talk about one thing that.
And I would say, no, I was joking, but I understand the romance, the romantic connection people have with the movie theater, and we kind of not only acknowledge it, but we support it. In the Paris Theater in New York that we saved was the last single screen theater in Manhattan. The theater's around 75 years old. We just put in a brand new, incredible Atmos sound system. So we use it to premiere our films, to screen our films. But we also do use it as a revival house that's just been showing sold out, to sold out audiences, all these kind of great movies that have never been seen in Atmos before.
I will say, to your point about the demand for movies that show in theaters first, it does feel like a lot of the most streamed movies are those that are in theaters first, but I'm not going to debate this with you right now.
Not on Netflix, right? Well, the biggest platform, not on Netflix. You're talking about on other services that don't have meaningful day-and-date movies.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing that you do that also everyone else does is advertising, which I meant to ask you about earlier.
Yes.
Your head of advertising just left after like a year at the company,
Yeah.
very new in this. That's usually not a great sign. There seems to be mixed. Look, Wall Street was very positive on your advertising business when you gave an upfront and you had some numbers, and they thought that was good. There's also been some reporting that suggests that you're way below what you had wanted. So where are you with advertising?
Look, they should be excited about it. We are. We're a year into it. Jeremy, by the way, did a great job getting us to where we're at today. What we have to do, by the way, not just us, all the platforms that have added an ad option, they've all got to do the same thing, which is they have to kind of get that tier at scale and to grow that scale with fans and viewers. So building the ad team and building the infrastructure and all those things which Jeremy did, which was great for us doing that. We definitely appreciate it. We're super excited about Amy Reinhardt coming in. She's a veteran at Netflix who understands all the complexities of growing new businesses at Netflix. So you should look at it as a doubling down, not a failing and moving on. And it's new. We're definitely in our infancy, and it's definitely not at the scale that we want it to be at yet. And consumers have to choose between it. And I'd say, when you said we would never do advertising, when we first started the business, we were classically counter-positioned against advertising. So for us to say we would never do it was part of that thing to say, if you go back to our old DVD business, our counter-position was no late fees. Audiences hated, fans hated paying late fees. So that was our big thing, no movie watching with no late fees. And when we started getting into streaming, we saw streaming will be the new television. And what do people not like about TV? Waiting and ads. So we're sitting through the ads or waiting until next week. So our classic counterposition was watch it all at once and no ads. Now, what happened is as we got bigger and bigger and more deeply penetrated into the world and also just smarter about it, we said, hey, we don't have an option for people who don't care about advertising and want a lower price. And I'd say it's a generational thing for sure. You saw YouTube and us on that chart. A lot of those folks have been watching a lot of stuff on YouTube with ads for a long time. And people like my son, who basically now that he pays his own bills, he's like, yeah, I'll take half price when I watch ads. I watch ads on YouTube all the time. So it's for him. So we were touting that we were all about choice and then not giving a choice to those folks who wanted a lower price and didn't mind advertising. Now we have to do the other thing. We have to be able to we have to deliver for advertisers and we have to deliver for the audience a product that's innovative and doesn't, interrupt their viewing experience in a way that makes the viewing experience worse. All those things we have to work on and get better and better at, and we're a year into it. Like that in games, these are also areas of the business that we're looking to deepen the value for consumers and drive revenue. And we have to do both of those things. We have to drive value first, and then you can drive revenue.
If we had more time, I'd ask you about games, but we got to get to the CEO of YouTube. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for doing that. Are we going?
Please welcome to the stage YouTube CEO Neal Mohan.
Hey man, how are you?
Good.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, of course.
You can blame me for this. I thought Ted had a sizzle. He did not. Neal does have a sizzle. Fortunately, that introduces him. For those of you that do not know him, this is CEO of YouTube, a job you've had for...
About 9 months. Yeah. I've been at YouTube a very long time, but in this role for about 9 months.
I need to start with, I want to ask you about that, of course. I want to start with sports.
Sorry about your Dodgers, by the way.
Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to get back at you. So how did you feel about the Lakers beating the Warriors in the playoffs?
Let's go. Back and forth here.
NFL. YouTube made a very big deal with the NFL to carry Sunday Ticket, among other things, paying, I think, more than $2 billion a year, if reports are to be believed.
Don't believe everything you read.
How's that going? How are you feeling about the partnership? How are you feeling about how Sunday Ticket's doing?
Yeah, look, it's very early on. We're a few weeks into the season, but I feel really, really good. I feel that the first and foremost, my priorities literally from the day that we signed the deal was on the user experience, our fan experience on YouTube, joint fans of the NFL and YouTube. We have millions and millions of sports fans on the platform, and the whole point of Sunday Ticket was to super serve those fans. And so everything from, what gets all the headlines, which is multi-view and, kind of 4 games at once and what have you, to latency, to the clarity of the picture, and then all the features and things like that we have, that users of YouTube TV have known and loved on Sunday Ticket. So really, really focusing on that. And that has gone, knock wood, really, really well from all the feedback that we've seen. So I feel great about the product that we put out there.
You like the multi-view?
I use the multi-view. every week myself. I like the multi-view, especially the one with Red Zone in one of the windows for me, and that's like, you know, as a huge sports fan, like that is like kind of like the perfect Nirvana experience for me.
Yeah. How many people are paying for this thing already?
You know, we don't break out that number as, but we, you know, I'm happy with the adoption of the product. We have, there's obviously lots of fans that are diehard NFL fans, but the whole point of this also, in addition to this kind of, you know, what we hope to be an incredible product experience, is also consumer choice, meaning that with a couple of taps on your phone, you can now sign up for this incredible, you know, premium service from the NFL on YouTube TV, but also on YouTube, importantly, through primetime channels. So that consumer choice has been a really important part of this experience as well. Now, within seconds, you can be up and running. You don't have to wait for a guy to come and install, you know, a dish on your house and the like.
Now, I'm curious, when your deal with the NFL was first announced, I admit I was surprised because I had written all about you guys funding original programming and then not funding original programming, and it just seemed like the Google, Alphabet, YouTube DNA was, we want to be this platform that doesn't pay for things, pick winners, we're sort of neutral. And you're also a company that makes almost all of its money from advertising. Sunday Ticket is a paid service for the most part. What was the strategy behind where it fits into the broader YouTube and Google strategy?
Yeah, so there's two parts to your, two premises to your question there. The first is we are ultimately about what we all as viewers want from YouTube. So in terms of whether the content is paid for or not, doesn't change what the user experiences in terms of what's recommended in our algorithms, what shows up when you open up the app in the home feed, what's recommended to you after you watch a video. That takes into account your personal preferences, and that's the North Star, just to be very clear about that. But in a strategic sense, really, it was as simple as the fact that we have, you know, we're one of the largest sports platforms out there if you think about YouTube. Everything from our YouTube creators that are focused on sports, creators like Destroying and many, many others, to the consumption of highlights from all of these leagues for many, many years, including in-game highlights in many cases, to live sports. We've carried live sports on our platform before. Paulistão, for example, the soccer league in Brazil, various live soccer events throughout Europe. And so we have had that as part of our DNA overall. And Sunday Ticket really just fits into that story. And the kind of the second premise to your question, I would also argue, Lucas, that yes, we are an ad-supported business. That is our primary means of monetization on behalf of our creators and partners on our platform. But we are also a subscription business. And you know, YouTube TV is a meaningful part of our business. YouTube Premium, of course, is a meaningful part of our business. And so Sunday Ticket fits into that category as well. We have I like to think of it as twin engines of our revenue growth. We have obviously an AVOD business, but we also now have a meaningful SVOD business. And we want to continue to invest in both because my belief is those two things reinforce each other.
You talked about being a platform for sports and having different rights. As I unfairly mentioned at the top, you're a big NBA fan. Those rights are coming up. Are you interested?
So what I will say is we're taking it one step at a time. Right now, the NFL Sunday Ticket is a big area of focus for us. And again, as I said, getting that viewer experience right, making that game day experience on Sunday flawless and seamless. And you should expect from us a lot more innovation there in terms of products, in terms of creator integrations, all the things that our fans, especially younger fans of the NFL on YouTube, expect. You should see more of that through the season and in the many seasons to come. So that's the focus. You know, regarding the NBA, they have been longtime partners. They operate one of the largest channels on our platform. My 15-year-old is a huge sports fan just like me. He watches a lot of NBA highlights, and he watches them on YouTube through the lens and the analysis of a lot of his favorite creators. And so we have a long partnership with them, but in terms of our focus right now, it's about this NFL experience.
So not no, but not yes. When I talked to a lot of people before this, asking them what I should ask you, I'd say the number one question I got by far was, please ask about shorts. We hate shorts. You guys have put a lot of resources into YouTube Shorts over the last couple of years. You have released a lot of numbers about how great you think it's doing, but a lot of your longer-term creators are upset because they feel like it's sort of the platform's trying to force everyone into something that they don't want to do. I know you've been asked this a million times, but I'm just curious, what do you say to those creators who are upset about it as to why you care so much about Shorts and why you think it's a good fit for YouTube?
What I would say, first of all, to those creators, even before answering that question, is that choice is up to our creators. I mean, we have been very clear from the early days, from the launch of Shorts now 3 years ago, that ultimately that's a creator-driven decision. Nobody knows their audience better on our platform than our creators and the means by which they want to engage with that audience, first and foremost. Now, having said that, I think that there's two things that are important here. One is viewer expectations. Viewers increasingly, especially when they come to YouTube, have an expectation of all forms of video, truly multi-format. And it's not just about sort of what we call sort of traditional VOD or traditional long form on YouTube today, but it's everything from, those 15-minute VODs to 15-hour live streams to 15 second shorts to podcasts to music. And so all of those, our viewers, and they show it both in terms of their feedback, but also in the data, expect that on YouTube. Shorts today is 70 billion views a day. That number's up from 50 billion in January. So the viewers are voting with their behavior. And, the way that our recommendation algorithms work is that it is sensitive to that viewer input in terms of how what is recommended in the feed. The second big thing that I would say is that creation is changing as well. Creation is much more, mobile first, of course. It's participatory in nature, and so because of those things, it's important for YouTube to play a meaningful role there. And what I have seen is that in general, it is incremental to the experience both on the viewer side and the creator side. We have lots of creators that now do both long form and short form, but we have lots of creators that will continue to only focus on long form. And importantly, we now have lots of creators that have a presence on YouTube, both in terms of building an audience, but also importantly in the long run, monetization through the doorway of Shorts, and that wouldn't have existed without our investment there.
Okay.
So that's how I would answer that.
I'm curious about that. Because monetization for you guys on Shorts is still very new, is there an existing company, platform, anything that has effectively monetized short-form video? And we're talking what you do on Shorts, TikTok, not the traditional YouTube, which it still blows my mind because I used to think of YouTube as a short-form video platform.
Perspectives change, sure. I think, look, what I'll say is that the feedback that I get, and I spend a lot of time, not just meeting and talking with our creators, but also with advertisers. And I think that there's a lot of excitement about being able to connect with their consumers, prospective consumers, on a feed-like product like Shorts. And by the way, that is not just for kind of classic feed formats like direct response formats. It's for brand building and awareness formats as well. And we see interest and demand on both of those pieces. I would say for us, Lucas, there, honestly, we're still in the very, very early days, literally first or second inning kind of early days. There is a lot, in my experience, and before I was at YouTube, as you know, I used to run our display and video ads business at Google. And my experience is that it takes years to build up that monetization capability because it takes years to build those ad products that advertisers are looking for. And so we're in the very early stages of that journey, but I'm quite optimistic.
You mentioned your long time at Google and now YouTube. How do you see YouTube changing under your leadership? And did Susan, your predecessor, who you worked with for a very long time, give you any advice as you stepped into the role?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so first of all, Susan and I have worked together forever, both in the ads business first, and then now at YouTube for the last 8 or 9 years. And she's not just a colleague, she's like a great friend and mentor of mine. And so I would say that the advice was a lot of what, she and I would talk about even before the transition, which is our lifeblood at YouTube is our creators. And when I say the term creators broadly here, obviously our YouTubers, artists on our platform, our media partners, and that is really, when you walk the halls of YouTube, that is what you see in product reviews and business reviews. That is really kind of deep into our culture and DNA. And I think kind of the advice, both in terms of words and her actions, and hopefully people will see in mine, that is front and center in terms of everything we do. That's how we make decisions.
Do you feel that advertisers, people in media, view creators and some of the folks who are sort of original or endemic to your platform as equal to, say, the shows that are on Netflix?
Well, I'll ask you that question because you write about a lot of this. But I would say, look, I'll give you my opinion, which is I feel like that is frankly, an artificial construct that was kind of maybe relevant 10 years ago. But when I meet with our partners, our creators, with our advertisers, that is, in my view, almost a relic of the past. If it comes up, I feel like it means that they're not really understanding what's going on in terms of media consumption. Because the most important part of that question is actually what viewers expect. And when you ask a young viewer, and our platform is a young platform, they don't make that distinction. The expectation is what I said earlier, which is everything from that 4-hour NFL game to that 10-hour gaming live stream to a 15-second short. There's me.
My 30-minute yoga videos.
Right, exactly. Their expectation is to find that that is distracting for me. I remember doing that. Like, almost broke my back there. This was my foray as a shorts creator with Eric, who's awesome. And so that's the viewer expectation. What do you guys think? Do you think I could be a YouTube shorts creator? I'm a very good straight man to what our creators like to do. So that's
Look,
the
I
bottom
agree
line.
with you. I think I was in a meeting yesterday where someone asked a question that was similar to something I'd been asked a lot over the years, right? If you remember, there was briefly a video site called HYBE. And the whole premise of HYBE was that it was premium short form. And I remember sitting down for my first meeting with Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman, and I just didn't understand it because there was an assumption that what was happening on your platform was thereby lesser than, and there needed to be a more premium form of it, when it is very clear that there are billions of people who are perfectly happy with what they get on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this because you're sitting here, but I know that you do understand this. It shows up in viewer behavior. And by the way, I was just at Rhett and Link Studio yesterday, Mythical, and it's amazing what they've built. I mean, it's like nearly 100 employees across all functions. It's like this hotbed of creativity. Both of them are first and foremost incredibly creative people, but they are also enormously successful business entrepreneurs as well. And that is, what they do is, the new, variety show, the new talk show. And that if you're a young person in particular, like, well, how would you think about that any differently, better or worse, or what have you? That's just what you know to consume. I would take any creator's content, pick your favorite creator. Michelle Curry, I think, is in the audience. Like, her boxing documentary, put that up against any piece of content. Why shouldn't it win awards? Why shouldn't it win Emmys, right? Like, that is, in order to be relevant for viewers in today's world, I think that's where the industry needs to go, to all the points you just made.
Ready for a YouTube Emmy campaign. We have one audience question, and then I have to get to the key topic, which is YouTube doubling down on esports and competing with Twitch?
So I will say a couple things. So gaming and gamers have been probably one of our oldest and, for the longest time, most important verticals on our platform, including esports, but really across the full gamut there. A lot of what is consumed there is, video on demand, which is kind of the core essence of our YouTube platform. But increasingly, a lot of that is live. And our investment there has been twofold. One is distribution, so make sure that, esports gamers or gamers in general, or live streamers even more broadly, have access to audiences that they can easily be discovered. If you are a fan and one of your favorite esports or gamers is going live, we should be able to find it. And then the second is monetization capabilities. So insertion of ads and things like that, that's been a priority for us, but also alternative monetization. So our investment in things like super chat, super stickers,
Subscriptions, all
yeah, channel memberships, channel gifting, has actually, a lot of it has been born out of and driven through the gaming community.
We did the audience. I do want to ask the poll question because it brings us to a topic that you spent a lot of time thinking and talking about recently, which is, you can see it behind here.
Okay.
Will artificial intelligence have a positive or negative effect on the creator economy? I have a feeling I know your answer.
I mean, for me, I think it's going to be clearly positive. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to come with risks, by the way. I don't want to be kind of glib about it. But I think it's going to be positive for a few reasons. And the way that we see, first of all, there's obviously a lot of conversation around artificial intelligence, particularly this year. But as you know, this has been an area that we have been investing in for many, many years. When you open up the feed and you get those recommendations, when you open up the app, what is that other than artificial intelligence? And so that is, it's like, it was the right answer, now it's shrinking. And so we've been investing in this for a very long time, both on the viewer side and the creator side. But just in general, the way I think about it, and we just announced a couple weeks ago at our Made on YouTube event, a number of AI-powered tools. But the key word there was tools, because it is meant to be AI in service of human creativity to enable a lot of those ideas and amazing sort of creative visions that our creators have, to do it in a way that was previously impossible, now possible. And I think we're in the early days of that, but the lens by which YouTube looks at all of that is through the lens of building tools for our creators to really enhance their creativity. And that's the focus of our roadmap of everything we build there.
And when you talk to your creators and your partners, one, is this a subject that comes up a lot? And two, are they as optimistic as you are, or are they more anxious about it?
So when we talk with our creators and partners, there's a question of, how quickly are we going to have access to these tools? So one of the ones I remember we announced was a tool that allowed, through the power of generative AI, when you open up YouTube Studio and you are staring at a blank canvas, it gives you ideas for what your next video might be. So if you're a travel vlogger, you want to produce a video about your recent trip to Portugal, it kind of lays out sort of what that itinerary could look like, what the ideas are. But then the creative vision has to come from the creator, and actually execution on it has to come from creators. But creators were incredibly excited about that because it takes away not just hours, but an enormous amount of stress otherwise in terms of producing content that their audience is going to love. So that's the feedback we get from creators. There are other questions that we do get, which I'm focused on, which is, with generative AI type tools, those are tools also potentially in the hands of bad actors. What do they do with that? Deep fakes, misinformation. And as you know, that has been a very big area of investment at YouTube for many, many years. And with AI, those rules don't change. What changes is the means by which we will have to enforce the community guidelines on our platform. But that's a commitment I have, and we are very focused on making sure that we can address that.
I'm curious on your perspective, because your company has went through sort of the earlier version of this, right, where user-generated content was a new concept, and you had all these people who were upset because they thought that their stuff was being stolen, and you had a fairly contentious relationship with a lot of media companies that now seems far more harmonious. Now the company's in that position, I don't think that's so much you, because you're just policing the stuff that people upload, but the different engines and models that are sort of sucking in material. It feels inevitable that there will be some kind of both content ID system like you have and a licensing regime, but I'm wondering how you see that playing out over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say there is back to kind of the lens through which we look at all of this technology. So there's two pieces. One is, of course, being part of Google, we should be at the forefront of tools and capabilities that come out of our investment in AI, everything from the base level foundation models to our partnerships with Google Research, Google DeepMind. But the other side, which is in the YouTube DNA, to your earlier question, is we are going to do everything that we do here through the lens of partnership and through the lens of making sure that it is creator first, creative first, right, across all of our partners. And that's the way those conversations have been going. And by the way, those are not just my words. You said it. We have a track record here. We have a track record through our investment and invention of technologies like Content ID that does two things. One is that it provides control to those rights holders, but the other thing that it does is it enables monetization, creates an entirely new pie that didn't exist before on behalf of those rights holders while allowing a lot of that creative expression to happen. We have found a way to strike that balance through technology and our principles before. I'm not saying that what will get invented here looks exactly like that, because there are different characteristics of generative AI than there are to, you know, matching two pieces of copyrighted content. But you can see how those principles might apply, those broad principles. You know, I announced a couple of principles in terms of how YouTube is going to approach this area over the summer. I did that in partnership with the music industry, with Solution.
This was your incubator? And,
yeah, with Universal Music Group and Solution and I had, you know, a joint announcement around it. But that second principle that we talked about was precisely about control and monetization for artists. And, you know, that was in the context of the music industry. But you can see how that concept of really putting creatives first applies across all of YouTube.
Okay, last question. YouTube today, I think people would agree, maybe not, looks fairly similar to how it has looked for a long time. There are changes, but the concept, the bones are the same. Mm-hmm. 5 years from now, what about YouTube looks or feels different?
Well, one thing that we didn't touch on, but I'll just touch on briefly here, is that, you know, everybody still, I think, probably primarily thinks about YouTube, or maybe not, but as a, you know, as mobile. You know, you can, you know, you watch it on your, you know, on your Android phone, on your iPhone, or what have you. But our fastest growing screen is actually the television screen, the screen that looks like this. And so I think one thing that you can expect from YouTube is really everywhere, especially in parts of the world outside of the US and North America. Like, that growth of large screens is happening even more rapidly in many markets around the world, India, et cetera. So really being across all screens is a big thing from a viewer standpoint. And then the other thing that you should expect is more continued investment in creator tools. We're starting with things like, you know, mobile first, shorts, you know, short form, vertical video, but you should see that as more just as a template, as a place to start in terms of where it grows. And I think the basis of this is, you know, our job is to build the world's best stage for video. It's our creators that are on the stage, and it's all of us as viewers that are watching that stage, and that's got to be the best theater. That's sort of like the strategic vision for us, whether that's a 15-second short, 15-minute video, 15-hour live stream. YouTube has to be the place for that, because we're very different, I think, than any other platform. You know, we're not a social media platform. We're not where you go to connect with friends. We're not a broadcaster. You know, we're our own thing. We want to be the premier place for creation, sharing, and watching a video, and that's our vision.
I can't believe we made it through this whole thing without talking about Mr. Beast. Neal, thank you very much.
All right, Lucas. Good seeing you. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage SRMG CEO and Red Sea Film Foundation Chairwoman Jumana Al-Rashid with Bloomberg Media CEO Scott Havens.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 Screen Time. We're off to a pretty good start, I think you might say. Jumana, thank you for joining me.
Scott,
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having us. Good morning, everyone. And I'd like to first start by congratulating you on such a successful inaugural event for Screen Time.
Thank you very much. Before we get started on some questions I have for you, I'd love for you to explain to our audience a little bit about the Red Sea Film Foundation and perhaps the seminal festival that you've created.
Of course. So the Red Sea Film Foundation is a cultural institution that was founded in Saudi Arabia in 2019. Of course, this was right pre-COVID and pandemic. So as everyone else did, we went back into our offices and we went back home and we started strategizing. But of course, we became recognizable for our flagship event, the Red Sea Film Festival. However, the foundation is much bigger than just an event and the glitz and glam of the red carpet. The foundation comprises of 4 main pillars, the festival being one of them, Red Sea Labs, Red Sea Fund, and Red Sea Souk. And this is how we really empower, nurture, and support the film ecosystem in the region and the wider region as overall.
That's great. Last night I talked a little bit about the globalization of the entertainment industry. Give us a peek into what's happening in the region from your perspective. How are the cultural and economic changes adapting with the entertainment and the cinematic business?
Well, Scott, I think let's first start by saying that back in 2017, there were no cinemas in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Not a single screen in Saudi Arabia. This was reintroduced after a 35-year ban. Therefore, the social and economic transformation is real. And as a film foundation, we're simply trying to become a part of that and enhance and empower that ecosystem that is going to yield both economic but cultural results. We believe that there's a real opportunity right now in the market. Last year at the festival, we had over 40,000 people attend and 5,000 filmmakers. Not only that, through our film fund, we have supported over 206 films, 8 of them participating at the Cannes Film Festival this year, and 8 of them in selection. And again, these are not simply Saudi films. These are films from the wider MENA region, from Africa, and we're now very quickly expanding into Asia. The cultural transformations are real. The talent is there, raw, authentic talent. And ultimately, I think what unites us all as people in the filmmaking or content creation industry is the passion for storytelling. Yeah. And this is what exists in a manner that is unprecedented. These are stories that have never been told. These are stories that have never been supported. And for us as a foundation and as a wider ecosystem in collaboration with international partners and the private sector, what we're trying to do right now is provide the technical capability and the right infrastructure to support these stories to be told not simply for a regional platform, but also for international platforms.
By the way, and I mentioned this also last night, I encourage you to get out there and talk to people because I believe, and someone will fact check me on this, that the conversation happened at a Bloomberg event in New York City between CEO or chairman of AMC Cinemas and someone on the Saudi side, which led to the sort of evolution of cinemas in the region, in the kingdom. So get out there, do deals, do partnerships. How and why is Saudi Arabia strategically positioned well for the region to be a gateway for content evolution, for cultural exchange?
We have a strategic geographical position, but we also, in line with that, we have a strategic transformation that's taking place, which is Vision 2030, which is allowing for the economic and social and cultural transformation, which means social reforms, which means being able to become a cultural hub for creativity and innovation. And again, this is what, I'll go back and reference what we've done through the Red Sea Film Fund and Red Sea Film Lab. There was an idea that was created by a Jordanian team at one of our lab workshops in Jeddah. That idea very quickly was turned into reality through the support, mentorship, and nurturing of the brilliant team at the Red Sea Film Foundation. And this film, earlier this year, was at the Cannes Film Festival. Amazing. So again, this is how we become a gateway. Another example of that is a Sudanese film that we supported earlier in the year that was also at the Cannes Film Festival competition. So these are, not only are we becoming a gateway, but we're also becoming a hub and a launching pad for creativity and innovation.
We talked a little bit about the cinema, the evolution of cinema, and the rapid growth since the conversations in 2017, the launch. How has that influenced the cultural landscape within Saudi Arabia and just generally the entertainment industry? Is it creating a groundswell of interest in the business and for more films to come in? What have you seen over the last 6 or 7 years?
Well, over the past 6 and 7 years, you've had 0 cinemas and 0 screens to 600 screens. We're aiming for 2,500 screens by 2030. forecasted box office revenues also forecasted at $1 billion by 2030. This is a massive transformation. This is the economic return that we're hoping for. But it also provides an opportunity for content creators, given the massive investment that is being undertaken by various members and entities of the ecosystem, be it the Red Sea Foundation, be it NEOM, be it ULA, who are all investing in the infrastructure through sound stages, through film rebate. The film rebate in Saudi Arabia is at the highest right now in the world at 40%. We're also providing master classes, workshops, but what that allows us to do is that for the very first time, these authentic stories through direct voices are being represented. Usually, and I think the region has always been an importer as opposed to an exporter. For the very first time, we are consuming our own content, and that's very much in line with various consumer trends and behaviors that are affecting all of our media organizations. And it's not simply limited to film. This is across the board, from film to news to entertainment to gaming. We need to understand audience preferences. And I think this is the importance of being able to work with young content creators. I'll tell you a very exciting story. So one of the companies that started back in 2011 is a production company called Tilfaz. And these were two young men who decided to leverage user-generated platforms, especially YouTube, to start creating content. Content that was really appealing to them, content that was culturally relevant, content that they wanted to watch, because again, all they used to consume is what we all consume, which was the either international or the very much traditional content. And one more aspect that I have to add is that this is a very young, dynamic population. 70% of the population is under the age of 35. Wow. Therefore, the content that they're consuming is very different from the content that my parents used to consume. So these two young men started creating short-form content and uploading it onto YouTube, and immediately witnessed massive reach and very high viewership. Fast forward to 2023, they now have an 8-film deal with Netflix. Their movie Sattar was outperformed international blockbusters in the box office, including Avatar. They have had 2 films premiere at TIFF, and of course Sattar premiered at the Red Sea Film Festival last year. So this is really the trajectory and the transformation of film and content creation in Saudi Arabia. This is still a very young company that was bootstrapping for a good 8 years prior to it starting to raise funds from various VC entities, one of them being SRMG. We've recently invested in them just because we saw a real opportunity and a production company that is scalable. And that's what's rare currently in the market. There are several opportunities, but the challenges are also there.
Talk a little bit about some of the other challenges. Financing would be one, right?
Financing, in the sense, there are several entities that are looking for various financing opportunities. However, the challenges exist in the value chain. The IP ideation, the script writing, the screenwriting, the writer's room, post-production, pre-production, the infrastructure. That is what's currently being developed. And that's why international partnerships are so important for us. And that's why this ecosystem that we're creating is also so important for us, because it will allow us to overcome these challenges that are really opportunities, given that, again, the talent is there, the stories are told, it's simply about the expertise.
Last question for you. You just mentioned international partnerships. You at SRMG have been active in this space. Talk a little bit about how those help accelerate collaboration, growth, and frankly, cultural exchange across regions.
Absolutely. Wearing my other hat as CEO of SRMG, we have one of our largest partnerships with Bloomberg, which we're very excited and proud of. It has allowed us to bring a new and different offering to 300 million Arabic speakers in the region, who have a very big appetite for insights, data, and financial news. So that's only one stream that we've kind of pursued in terms of international partnerships. 2 days ago, again, something that we're very proud of, we launched our partnership with Warner Brothers Discovery, which is a new free-to-view platform with one of the most prominent production houses in the world. But again, I think the traditional model would have simply been to license or to syndicate. What we're doing right now is creating original content that can speak to the relevancy of our culture and that can speak to audiences' preferences, demands, and requirements. With Warner Brothers Discovery, part of this deal would not only allow us to localize their content, but also to enter co-production deals. And that's really what matters to us most. Co-production means that we get to train the next generation of content creators. Co-production means that we work with the best international expertise and talent and bring them to the region and have our talent work on sets, learning on the go. But this is just the start. There are various opportunities for international partners to come in, be it to benefit from the film rebate, be it to benefit from the box office numbers. And I think Saudi Arabia was the only market and was the only box office to fully recover post-COVID and to double its revenue, in contrast to global decline in box office. So there's a real opportunity there, and there's a real story there. It's not simply a story to watch, but it's a story to be involved in.
Yes, and for all of you, doors open for partnerships. Thank you for being a partner. Thank you for being here, and good luck with continued growth.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Kris Jenner with Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde.
Thank you for having us, Bloomberg.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What a joy to be here to discuss your business, your success in content. But the world weighs heavy right now, and I know we just wanted to spend one moment thinking about how you have re-amplified your daughter's voice today, about how heavy your hearts are at this moment. And I know you've been speaking to friends and loved ones about the war between Israel and Hamas, and it must be something that you think about how you'd connect with your audience at this moment.
Well, it is a horrible, devastating human disaster and tragedy around the world right now. Everybody's got a lot of fear. And I think that just to amplify what Kim said yesterday was just that our thoughts and prayers are with everyone right now. And like Kim said, check on your friends and your family members and anybody who might be. I know so many of our friends are so fearful. And so it's hard. It's tough.
You have built a powerful set of not one, not two, what is it, more than 20 companies that you're involved in through your family. Ultimately, you have kept your family close at all stages. We brought you here because it says branding and business maven, but more than that. How much was your connection with a consumer, with an audience, with people and their hearts brought ultimately from your early days in your childhood? You had sort of retail in your bones, the consumer in your bones.
Well, I started working in my grandmother's store when I was about 10 years old. So the DNA, if you will, that I had sort of in me at a very young age, I grew up just a real people pleaser. And I wanted everybody to be happy and be proud of me. And when you start working at a young age, I was in charge. My grandmother had a candle store, and I was in charge of the gift wrapping station. So I had a big job. And I was working all summer when my friends were at the beach.
Yeah.
I was at the store. And I think over the years of doing that and graduating to the cash register and, interacting with the customers and then, building my little retail entrepreneurial life when I was young and I was a teenager and working in retail stores, I think you do learn a certain amount of finesse with your audience, your customer, talking to people and convincing somebody how to buy something.
Yeah.
Your paycheck sometimes, it involves how many sales you made that month if you're on a commission. And then it kind of developed a little bit of my competitive spirit.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to win and make everybody proud of my family, proud of me, my grandmother proud of me, my mom proud of me. So, and just the inspiration of watching these women get up every single day and go to work. That was just our way of life. And in my family, we all worked. And that was just how it was done. And so I didn't really know any different. And I loved it. My grandmother loved it. My mom loved it. And they're so proud of it. My mom, to this day, she's almost 90. And she talks about her work life and her career all the time because she loves to talk and we reminisce. And, you know, and I listen to her and she just tells the same stories over and over. She loves them about her life in her stores in La Jolla.
And so there's work ethic there. Then came the power of persuasion. Then came the network that you built. What do you think the skill sets have been that you've really lent upon, and who did you build them from?
The network of people that I think I've been around. I think I was around so many powerful people in my entire life. From the time I got married to Robert Kardashian and had a whole ecosystem of businessmen and entrepreneurs and people running studios. And, you know, any given day it would be the head of a studio and, you know, just often paid attention without really realizing I was paying attention. And I had a very amazing education. I was a housewife. I was raising 4 kids at home. I had the most blessed situation, but at the same time surrounded by these business situations that I didn't even realize were happening right in front of me, but I must have been absorbing it because there's so many times I've like brought up in my mind one of those conversations that I had learned from. And so I think I had a very lucky and blessed existence that way because it brought me to some of the lessons that I've learned today. What I did learn from that is just being able to tap into some of those friendships and resources and business relationships that I had. And I think that if you look around, sometimes you don't realize what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think that I am someone who loves to learn something every single day. And I love to reach out to the people. And even if I don't know someone, if they hold the key to some magic that I would love to learn about, I have no problem calling someone up and going, hey, can we have coffee or can we have lunch? I'm really stuck and I don't know how to make this decision and I need a little help.
So did you call on that magic to Hulu, for example? How did those sorts of conversations first erupt? Is it that
Hulu
you go out there for that conversation, that magic, or do they come to you now in this inbound moment, having crescendoed your career over this time?
You know, we had the most amazing experience at the E! Network with NBC, Comcast, and that whole group for many, many years.
More than 20 seasons.
20 seasons, over a decade of doing business, and had the most beautiful friendship and relationship. And then I think it was just time to have a new chapter. And I really felt like streaming was in the cards for us, and my family really wanted to try and tried to take a stab at that because that was really the future in our minds. We wanted to elevate what we were doing and streamline the show and have a new audience.
Yeah.
With, you know, it's Hulu and Disney Plus around the rest of the world. And the show's always been in so many countries and so many languages, and we have such an amazing following. And that transition for us, we were very lucky because we kept that audience and gained new audience, new friends, and we still have a wonderful relationship over at E! They're still airing some of our shows, and so it makes it nice because now it's a much broader audience.
You keep saying lucky, and it's interesting because it wasn't luck that first brought you to thinking about infomercials, about seeing what perhaps you hadn't seen at the time, which was a champion you were married to, that you wanted to lean on that relationship that Bruce at that time had with people who appreciated his sports, and then you led into infomercials, then suddenly it became linear television, then the transition to screening. How have you always been able to see basically where the consumer's going?
I think I do like to lean into opportunity, and I do like to think about what the next thing could look like. And in those days when it was about, okay, we have bills to pay, kids in school and things going on, and how is this going to happen? And I just had to really figure it out. And when I created Keeping Up with the Kardashians and brought it to Ryan Seacrest, and we brought it to E! And they said yes, and 30 days later we were filming. And I was just very persistent about the direction I knew I wanted to go in, and I think we were prepared for, but it takes a village. And I think what is so I mean, when I say lucky, I feel lucky. I feel blessed to have opportunity that I can, extract this amazing career out of, and also share that with my family. And they have taken this and run with it. When you think about somebody in the entertainment business, usually they do it and they thrive and grow and perform on their own. And with me, we get to do it all together. It's not just one of us trying to do it all by ourselves and create this world for the whole family, but we all get to have a part in our present and our future and what we're going to do. So there's lots of family meetings, and we discuss what next steps are going to be. And the kids they've got amazing work ethic, and they never stop. So I feel like it takes a village. It takes all of us together, and I think that's the magic.
And it takes you on, I think, every single company. Was it more than 20 that ultimately have been born across, from clothing to skincare, from now your own, cleaning products? How do you ensure that you're remaining someone who sat at the table with a board presence, if you want it, for example, in private equity?
What's the question?
For example, how do you, are you always wanting to be integrated with every part of the business that happens with all parts of your ecosystem of your family?
I think that, do you mean how we decide who's going to run the businesses?
Yeah, and in terms of you always having a presence within it.
Right. Well, I mean, listen, I like to have a presence in the beginning and identifying what it is we're going to do, what makes sense, what the girls are really interested in and passionate about. There used to be a time where we would just throw spaghetti, and take anything because we were learning and growing, and, lots of stuff didn't work out. But as we've grown over the last couple of decades, I think that we really do want to do things that we completely enjoy and that make sense and that we're passionate about, because it's very difficult to do something that you're really not that into. So I think my job is to identify a company or a product or a business, and then helping to build the team that's around that. Yeah. It's like with Skims, for example, I can use that. Kim thought about doing a shapewear company for 10 years. And Kim and I were in Cannes, and she was with Kendall, and they were going to do the red carpet. And I went up to get Kim, and she was leaning over a bathtub filled with warm water and tea bags, and she was dyeing her underwear and cutting it up. And I said, "What are you doing? You've got to be downstairs in 10 minutes. She goes, "I got it," and they're blow drying the stuff. She goes, "This is just really what I want to do." And she did that for years. And then, suddenly it was time to start this business. And so I asked the partners that we have now in Skims to come on board. Would they like to help us manufacture? Because I knew how to make makeup and beauty. I wasn't sure exactly how to make shapewear. So I knew I had to find somebody who was great at manufacturing clothing and running that kind of a company. So I think that's a good example of how we are, our ecosystem and our process works. We identify a business, we, get it funded and try to get it off the ground, and then we find the best team of people to put around that company.
When you said you threw spaghetti against the wall,
a lot of it.
Any regrets, or was it always a learning process?
I think all of it at the end of the day, I look at everything as it was meant to be. Yeah. And it's always a learning process for me. Sometimes like anybody else, I'll get frustrated and, that something's not going perfect. But after all, you have to have these experiences to get to another level and to get to another chapter. And yeah,
any
it's kind of the way.
Partnerships you turned down that you wish you hadn't?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there might be a couple, but I think in the end, it was the best thing, because then later, years later, we end up doing it ourselves, or we doing it with a partner that might be, easier to work with, or a better financial outcome, or however you want to look at it. There's always a reason.
And we were just talking about how the partnership was born with Hulu, and you decided this is the moment to move from linear TV to streaming. Do you think a show is integral to the Jenner Kardashian family unit?
I think that the show has always been an amazing foundation for everything else we do. We love doing it. We've had such an amazing relationship and experience with Hulu and Disney, and it's been so great. And we love what we do. And I think over the years we've been doing it for so long that we have figured it out, you know, like an easier schedule on some levels. And if one of the kids is a little burnt out, somebody else will do the heavy lifting. And our crew is so amazing. They're like I told you, backstage, they're like part of our family. And we have such a great time doing it. And we all get to work together so that it's just a plus all the way around. But Hulu's been amazing. And I think that it's given us the chance to elevate the production value and do some things that, you know, maybe we couldn't do before. So that's kind of fun.
And build a new audience. And from that perspective, that's where you've navigated. You've thought about audiences. You've gone and how do you therefore think about the landscape of social media at the moment? Does one as a family have to have presence everywhere? Are you relatively thoughtful about which one you want to lean into at a certain moment or not?
You know, that's a really good question, because when we first started doing Keeping Up with the Kardashians, there was barely Twitter. There was Facebook and Twitter. There was no Instagram. There was no Snapchat. There was no TikTok, none of it. And so now I look back on that and I think, wow, that's kind of remarkable. I think that social media is, it's crazy. It's like fire. It can keep you warm or it can burn your house down. I mean, it's like so drastic. And I think about, for me, I could go on for hours about social media and my grandchildren and, you know, all of that.
Worry?
Of course I worry. I mean, it's just such a negative place at times, but then it's such a great place at times, and it's great for business, and it's an amazing focus group. It's like a built-in focus group. I remember when Kim first had her first fragrance, and she reached out to her folks on Twitter and said, do you like this bottle or that bottle? And they told her, and she did it, and it was a huge success. And I was like, wow, how did you figure that out? She taught the rest of us, how, you know, my family, how to navigate through social media platforms. But now it's such a special tool, but it can be a little scary too, for me. I mean, I'm just talking personally. I just think that for me, I've almost 13 grandchildren, and that's a lot of little humans to worry about. So
How do you think about protecting them in the next iteration of social media? Do you think it'll still be around when they're...
I think that it's always going to evolve. I think that I don't know what the next platform is going to be, but I think for them, they have definitely rules and parameters of how they, you know, use social media and when they're allowed to get on. My oldest grandson is going to be 14, so he has a cell phone and all of that.
And they, I'm sure, look to you for parameters and for guidelines. Who do you look to for parameters, for guidelines, for mentorship? Who inspires you?
I have some amazing friends who I've been friends with since I'm 20 years old. You know, people like Tommy Hilfiger and, you know, just many, many people that have kind of done some of the things that I would love to do and I'm so proud of, and businesses that they built, and they've kind of shown me the ropes on different things. But really my true people that I look up to and get inspiration from is my mom, my grandmother who taught me so much, my kids who inspire me every day. I mean, they drive me crazy too, don't get me wrong. But, you know, it's just, I feel totally blessed to have this many grandchildren and kids, and they keep me really happy.
And the fact that you managed to find, I'm not going to say it's balance, there is never balance, and I'm sure us being voyeurs of your lifestyle, it doesn't look like much balance sometimes, but the fact that you've managed to weave together business with family means that at least you've always never having to worry about lack of time together. I'm interested as to whether you think ultimately that balance can continue going forward, and what you would give your advice to other mothers who at the age of 50, because they need to, they embrace a new career trajectory, they decide on a new business. What would you say to them?
I think that's really interesting when you say decide, because it's a decision that one makes. For me, I had to figure out how I was going to make a living and pay bills and create a lifestyle and a life for my kids that I was happy and proud about. And that meant figuring it out. And I started filming my show when I was 52 years old. When you think about that and all the time that in between, you know, it's crazy when I think about how old I was and how I just, I don't know.
As the case may be, depending on.
I know. It seems very young now, but at the time I thought, oh, here we go. We're going to start a whole new career. And Courtney and I had a children's shop, and I thought this show is going to be so great. We are going to sell so many T-shirts. I mean, when I think about that, I was so happy. I thought, oh, and then the show did great, and we couldn't even go to the store because we didn't have security. We were going to get bombarded. But I feel like our journey has been one of learnings all along. And yeah.
When does it stop? I mean,
just to say one more thing. Yeah. Anybody that wants to start a career, if you're 52, if you're 62, if you're 102, I think there's nothing more beautiful than that. To be able to have that kind of just energy, and it keeps you young and creative and feeling worthy and worthwhile, and your self-esteem goes up, and just having a schedule and all of that. There's so many things I could go on about just mental health, physical health, spiritual health, you know, just all of that, and how great that we all felt to be having those opportunities come our way and really going out and searching for them.
Do you ever wake up not motivated?
Yeah.
And what do you do?
Yeah, I go back to sleep.
We're still someone who wakes up at, 4 or 5 a.m.?
I do. Listen, if I wake up at 4 sometimes and I think, oh, I just can't do this, and then I go, you know how you go back to sleep and then you look at the clock and it's like 6:50 and I'm like, oh my God, I overslept. So, yeah, so I'm just sort of silly. But do you guys wear an Oura ring? Anybody wear an Oura ring? I started wearing an Oura ring, and now it's become this little obsession.
Oh, competitive.
I am so competitive with myself. Today, I think I got an 87, and I was so mad I didn't get a 90. And
on your
Kim
sleep
will call
or
me,
your restful?
Well, the restful part, I'm just a lost soul. But the sleep, I can at least excel at. So that's what I concentrate on. Okay. And that tells you a lot about my personality, because I just want to concentrate on the things that I actually can do okay at and just try my best for the next night. But Kim beats me every night. It's so annoying.
There's the competitive instinct.
That's right.
We've run out of time, but one thing that after a day where you haven't felt motivated, or you've done 1,000,001 things within 20 hours, what do you do to relax?
I like to be, I just planted a vegetable garden, Chloe and I, because we live next door to each other. And it's really great. But when you plant a vegetable garden, you don't get like millions of vegetables the first week or two. It's getting started, little bits here and there. And so Chloe and I are splitting the little bits. So it's getting kind of funny, because I'll go over and steal some of her bits and she'll steal some of mine. But what I love is I do love doing things that are creative and, you know, design things. The vegetable garden makes me happy. Being outside makes me happy. Going on walks makes me really happy and clears my head. And just being with the kids. Sometimes I go to bed like 5 nights a week, and I'll count how many grandkids I got to see that day. Like if I go to Chloe's house and she's having a pumpkin carving party and there's 6 grandkids, I'm like, I'm halfway there. It's like I have a competition with myself.
Okay, well, you're about to add a 13th, so
yeah.
Congratulations with that. Thank you for spending some time amid your family times. I hope you get to see a few grandchildren when you head off today.
Thank you so much.
Please do give it up for Kris Jenner.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Allen Media Group Chairman and CEO Byron Allen with Bloomberg's Cameron Leach.
How's it going? Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? We're good? We're good?
Oh, come on, you better than that. How's everybody doing? Come on, show the love. How's everybody doing? Can I get a little bit more love in here? All right.
Obviously,
I got him right for you, Cameron. We're good. We're ready to go.
Make this job easy.
We're ready to go.
You make this job very easy. First of all, we have Byron Allen here, the CEO of Allen Media Group. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Cameron. Great to see you, and thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So I'm going to open up this discussion. Obviously, we're talking about investments in media. There's so much happening in the geopolitically environment and also in just, American issues. But I want to ask you, though, is media still a great investment in today's time? Traditional media, that is.
I think it's the greatest investment in the world. Because I think 100 years ago it was the Industrial Revolution. And what fueled the Industrial Revolution? Gas and oil. Today, it's the digital revolution. And you have over 4 billion connected devices that have an insatiable appetite for content. And what's fueling that? Content. But content is the new gas and oil. We'll never produce enough of it. There will never be a way to fulfill the appetite that people have around the world to be entertained and informed and to really just be connected.
Does it scare you a bit that there has been a drop in advertising, a shift in consumer behavior as well, too? A lot of these people watch media on their phones as well, too. And even, Bob Iger, while he was in Sun Valley, when I was there, he was discussing selling some ABC television stations. Does that scare you any bit about the business model?
Not at all. I mean, advertisers don't advertise because they want to. They advertise because they have to. Good luck selling your cars, your soft drinks, your burgers. Good luck selling anything without advertising. You need us. You need us to make your sales goals, to make your profits. It's a $300 billion a year global advertising market, and it's only going to get bigger. The audience is getting bigger. It's cyclical. It'll go up and down, but at the end of the day, advertisers have tried for decades not to spend that money, but they keep coming back like crackheads.
Jesus Christ. Listen,
they need our eyeballs. I know that's going to be the headline. Byron Allen calls advertisers crackheads. I got it. I know my PR people are now doing damage control. But at the end of the day, once again, they advertise because they have to. Yeah. You need our eyeballs. You think they run those commercials because they want to? You need us to say, go buy this amazing product. They're going to be there, and that $300 billion is going to go straight up. It's going to go straight up like a rocket. But here's what I want to say to all my competitors. Media sucks. And get out of it immediately.
I see what you're trying to do. Now, listen, we're talking about advertising as well, too. You've had some legal disputes with, McDonald's, also Comcast as well, too. You're trying to get them to spend more money with black-owned media. Is that correct?
Well, yes, absolutely. Black-owned media is extinct, and I don't believe we have a real democracy unless all of our voices are widely heard and distributed. So I think we need to have more ownership from women. Women don't own anything. Asian people don't control their image. They don't control anything. Hispanic people, gay people. I want everybody to own their media assets so you can be 110% authentically you. You have to be authentic, and it has to come from the people who have to represent themselves. Don't let anybody else represent you. You have to represent yourselves. I watched the world's biggest media companies put on talk shows where they had black men taking DNA tests and they would dance that they weren't the baby daddy. That wasn't my daddy and that wasn't my granddaddy. Now you look at me and I have the ability, I have more television shows on than anybody, right? I have over 70-something television shows. What did I do with my power and position? I put on 9 judges, legal scholars.
Judge Mathis,
Judge Ross, 2 African-American males, 2 Latinas, and 5 African-American females. 9 court shows as legal scholars. No one's putting on more positive images of black and brown people than me.
I like that.
And I've watched white-owned controlled media depict me. And I'm not going to be bitter. I'm going to be better. Step up and just make it better. You do you, I'm going to do me.
Now, I want to talk briefly about your legal dispute with Comcast. You sued them.
Well, Comcast and I are buddies.
Yeah, you guys settled now.
Yeah, we're
right?
good friends.
Okay,
now.
all right. Now, when
I love Comcast, and Comcast loves me. Everybody loves me, Cameron. Not just my mama and my wife and my 3 kids. Well, my 2 teenage daughters don't love me that much these days. I got a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old.
Now, so wait, I gotta push back on this one though. What changed from then and now with Comcast in the sense of them investing more in Black-owned media?
Well, listen, you know, what I said to the cable industry, you know, what I've said to America is that the greatest trade deficit in America is the trade deficit between white corporate America and Black America, between white corporate America, brown America, between white corporate America and females. And we have to close that trade deficit in order to have one America. And so we can keep talking about it, but I'm not about talking. I'm about getting it done. So I hit them with I hit some people with a $20 billion lawsuit to move the conversation along. Because when that's definitive action. And I said, you can get rid of my lawsuit in 1 second. All you have to say is, Byron Allen's wrong. Here's who we're doing business with that's Hispanic, Asian, female, Black. Couldn't find that unicorn. And we had to get to a point where we said, this is how we do business together. I'm here to make everybody better.
I got you.
And that's what I do. I don't believe in analysis paralysis. When you come to my office, there's a sign at the elevator that said, wait, I want you to know about this sign. When you come off the elevator, it says, there isn't a bank in the world where I can deposit excuses, so I don't accept them.
I like that.
When you come off the elevator, you know exactly who you're dealing with. You don't even get to my office.
That is true for sure.
You know what time of day it is. No analysis paralysis. Man, let me tell you something. One of my greatest advantages, I own my company 100%. No board of directors. I make a decision, we move. And I had a guy say to me, runs a big media company. This guy ran a major division, Warner Discovery. Okay. It was just Warner Media at that time. He says, you know what, when we sit in our meetings, we don't talk about Disney. We don't talk about Paramount. We don't talk about Sony. He goes, you know who we talk about? I go, who? You. I said, really? He goes, yeah, you. I go, why? He goes, we are giant battleships, and you're like a little speedboat. And if there's gold on the beach, you run rings around us, get to the beach, take the gold, and by the time we turn our battleship around, you've already taken the gold. I go, that's right.
You definitely
and so I'm always going to say that I'm always going to be that entrepreneur. I started my company from my dining room table 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And I started by calling every television station, asking them to carry my once-a-week show. On average, they all said no 50 times, and I worked through about 50,000 no's to get 150 yeses. That guy that was at that dining room table trying to pay his phone bill is that same guy today, 30 years later. That fire is still in my belly. I still run scared, and I'm still running after that vision of building the world's biggest media company.
In that same vein, we have an audience question here I think is really good. How should minority-owned production companies look for financing right now in today's time? Because it's tough to raise money in this current environment as well, too.
I couldn't raise money. It was my blessing. I could not raise money, and that's just one of the things it's very common in the Black community not to have access to capital that's not predatory, but it happened to be my blessing. I'm so happy I didn't raise money. I had to build it brick by brick, and by the time it ended up being one of the largest, privately held media companies in the world, I had major scale and bought the Weather Channel and invested over $1 billion buying Big Four network affiliates. It's one of the greatest blessings I've ever had because I see what happens to I just did something that no one else could have done.
Talk to me. What was it?
Since the beginning of television, we've used the currency of Nielsen. Nielsen determined what the ratings were, and that's what we traded hundreds of billions of dollars off of. I said, I'm not feeling Nielsen. They're measuring 40,000 homes. I came across a company called VideoAmp. They're measuring 40 million homes. They're showing the Weather Channel's ratings at almost 2 to 3 times higher in certain demos than Nielsen.
So you're calling Nielsen antiquated?
I didn't say that.
That's what it
sounds
like.
You said that.
That's what it sounds like.
You better get your lawyers on the phone. My
stop,
lawyers. I didn't say that. I said they're measuring 40,000 homes where VideoAmp is using set-top data to measure 40 million homes. And our ratings on certain demos at the Weather Channel, 2 to 3 times higher with VideoAmp. That is significant when you're selling advertising.
Yes.
I was able to go and move the entire ad buying community from Nielsen to VideoAmp, and that's never happened in the history of television. Now, I was able to do that because I don't have a board of directors, no analysis paralysis, and every media company came up to me, the heads of all the media companies. You know what they said to me?
What they said?
Thank you. We're right behind you. I said, how come you didn't do it? They said, management, board, we couldn't get them to do it. I go, you guys, this is not brain surgery. You're thinking too much. You got to move. Speed wins championships. You know, Michael Dell said it best. You guys keep asking me about IBM. I'm not worried about IBM. I'm worried about the guy in the garage you've never heard of. I always want to be that guy in the garage they never heard of. I'm running harder than they can ever imagine. Every day, 24/7. It's a game to me. I love this game. I can't wake up, suit up, put up 80 points a game, start flying through the air like you didn't see that coming, did you? I love it. I mean, that was a big move. We changed television by moving an entire ad buying community, every last one of them, all the holding companies, all the agencies, billions of dollars. Boom, we moved them over. I'm loving it. I'm loving the game.
Byron, we're running short on time, but I do want to touch on the sale of ABC stations.
Yeah,
with Bob
ABC stations and network.
Correct.
Yeah.
And have you already submitted a bid, or you're looking to submit a bid?
Well, I submitted a bid. I texted it to Bob.
Okay.
Bob was on CNN. I'm sorry, he was on some other network, and Bob said he didn't see linear networks as being core.
Yeah.
I said, got my mobile phone and said, here you go. And it was very straightforward. It's like, hey, whatever your EBITDA is, because, I'm willing to pay you an 8X. So just open the books, let's go. But they're not ready to sell. He's not ready to sell. But I wanted to make it clear.
Why do you say he's not ready to sell?
Well, they've made that statement. They're not there. That's a complicated thing. They have to bifurcate that. They have to pull that out of the Disney system. That's a tough thing to do. And Bob is brilliant. He's excellent at what he does. When he's ready to sell, I just told him, you don't need to make more than one phone call. I'm your man. Call me. Everybody else is a waste of time. Call me. I'll get it done. What you want?
And also,
listen, the money is easy. The money is very easy. There's plenty of money. There's $80 trillion out there floating around looking for, great management. That's the real commodity. Great management. That's the commodity, right? There's $80 trillion out there. You don't have 80 trillion Byron Allens. Okay, you want your money back with a return? Call me. All right, so I said to Bob, right, just to be really clear, I'm ready when you are, but it's not about the money. It's about certainty of close. And very few people can get a deal like that. ABC News, get that approved in Washington, D.C. And what you don't want to do is go sell it to somebody that can't get the deal closed, and now you're walking around in adult diapers for a year.
All right, so listen, one more. I was going to let that marinate just for a little bit.
I'm sorry, I'm just being me. You guys all right? All right, come on. I'm just being real. Everybody always wants to do their charts and graphs. This is great. I don't have to report to anybody. I just report to my wife. That's it.
One thing
and my mama loves me.
One thing you've been very clear about is that you're very acquisitive right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, the FCC is, pretty much scrapping the Tegna deal as well, too. Do you have any interest in acquiring some of those Tegna stations again?
Right now, I'm more focused on, I would love to see, what we can do in the way of a big broadcast network.
Okay.
I want to see I've got my eye on ABC. And if Bob is ready and he wants to sell it, I'm going to chase it down like a lion chasing down a gazelle. I'm going to get it. And he has to be ready. The capital is easy. And by the way, the most important thing, I'm going to get it approved. We're going to get that done. And, we're going to have some fun when we get our hands on something.
What is it about Washington that loves you?
Well, I'm nowhere near the cap. Right now, I've invested a little over $1 billion buying Big Four network affiliates. I'm just under 5% of the country. Everybody else talking about it, they're over the cap. They're at the cap. They have 39% or more. You have to go with a buyer who can get it done. The truth of the matter is, everybody is too big to do it.
I see.
Right? I'm really the one who is like at the right size and the right position to get it done. So I'm just looking to grab a seat at the table. And I'm gonna look. I think I can also. I think there are things I can do. You know, when I bought the Weather Channel from some private equity firms, they were done. They tapped out. I bought it a little over 5 years ago. We pushed up the top line. We pushed up the EBITDA. Mother Nature came in with some more weather events. We're good. I mean, the Weather Channel is very good, Cameron, very good. Every day, we're top of the news, Weather Channel. People watching their houses float down the street.
Oh, my goodness.
Turn on the Weather Channel. Yeah, that's your house floating down the street. I told you. It was going to start floating. You better get in your car, go that direction. You know, we're there. We're there to save lives.
How much is it generating revenue each year?
That's private, but I'm happy.
I tried. Now listen, I do want to pivot to the business of Byron Allen.
Yeah,
you've been very adamant about going after NFL teams as well, too.
Yeah.
I broke the news that you were interested in buying the Denver Broncos years ago. Wound up going over to the
richest family in the world, the Walmart family.
Totally understandable.
It's not a bad day at the office when you lose to the richest family in the world.
Now, that's a class you want to be a part of. How are your discussions with other NFL owners and Roger Goodell as well, too?
You know, listen, Roger Goodell and Bob Kraft came to me in November of 2019, and they said, we need a favor. I'm like, okay, what you need? They said, we need you to buy an NFL team. I'm like, oh, that's one hell of a favor. I go, what's up, guys? And they were like, well, you know what? We want to achieve, to their credit, 2019, they said, we want to achieve something that has never been achieved and long overdue. We want a majority black owner of an NFL team, and we've never achieved that in over 100 years. And they said, we will work with you. We want to lean in and we'll, start to learn our culture. And they said to me, Roger and Bob said to me, this will be good for the league and great for the country. And I said, great for the country? They said, yeah. I said, you got me. I'm in. I'll do whatever is great for the country because I'm America first. America's great. My mama's great. My family's great. My company's great. I'm there. So I said, let's do it. So they said, get to know our lawyers and our CFOs and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, let's go. So I got to learn, and it was great. I learned a lot. And then they said, keep an eye on Denver. And this was about a year before Denver traded, it was before Denver traded. And Denver traded, and then Commanders came around. I didn't go after it. And I sent an open email because Jerry Jones said, and I love Jerry. Jerry said, I would walk across Texas to get a majority black owner of a team. And so I sent him an email, and I said, you don't need to walk across Texas to get a majority black owner. All you got to do is get on your private jet and fly to L.A., and I got you. And so call me up. So he called me, and we're going to get together this Monday at Monday Night Football.
You and Jerry Jones.
Oh, yeah, me and Jerry. Jerry, yeah. So Jerry called me. The two of us, that's a reality show talking. And
we can develop that at Bloomberg, too. But
so Jerry and I had a great conversation. I said, Jerry, look, here's the deal. It just has to be, you have to, if you want a majority black owner, you can't have the rules that you had when teams were going for 100 million, 200 million, 500 million, okay? You have a debt ceiling that you can only put $1.1 billion of debt on the acquisition of a team. Well, now we're talking about teams going for $5 to $6 billion. We have to lift that debt ceiling to at least 2.1 billion, maybe 2.5, but it can't be anywhere near $1.1 billion. And then on the equity check, you want the majority black owner to write 30% of the equity check. So what you're really asking someone to do on a $6 billion acquisition, you're saying you can borrow $1 billion, you have to put in you can put in $5 billion of equity, and we want that majority black owner to write a check for $1.5 billion. Well, I'm like, come on, guys. At $6 billion, let's just be clear, you've run out of rich white guys. So where do you think we're landing with the black guys? Let's get real. So we have to change the rules. We got to lift that debt ceiling from $1.1 billion to about 2.5, maybe, hell, lift it to 4. I'm good. Okay. Lift it as high as you can. And then that equity check, maybe it's not 30%. Maybe you're asking me to do 20%. Maybe you're asking me to do $600 million and not $1 billion. That's a better conversation, certainly with me and my wife. So That's what I think we can financially engineer this where we can get it to a point where it can be done. But if you really want that, let's lean in. And by the way, once again, also the other thing we need to do, allow institutional investors to come in. Okay, because right now it's just high net worth individuals. Now that we're hitting teams costing $5, $6, $7 billion, lift the debt ceiling. Maybe to get that first black owner, it's not a 30% equity check, it's smaller than, and allow me to bring in institutional investors, because there are institutional investors that would love to put $500 million, $1 billion into an NFL team, because here's what the NFL has. It is the true religion of America. It's the highest rated television content by far. It takes up 95 of the top 100 television shows each year. Yeah. And we have a $10 billion, because I own a number of ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox affiliates. We signed an 11-year deal with the NFL, paying them $10 billion a year, $110 billion to have NFL games on our television stations. So they're going to print money out to 2033. Okay? There's plenty of financing and banks that will support that. They don't need to be so stringent on that debt ceiling of $1.1 billion. We got to lift that and lift it to a point where it's attainable. And I'm ready to play, guys. Let's not mess around. Let's just get it done.
Byron, you know we can talk all day.
Yeah, I love
it. Give it up for him.
Thank you, baby.
Thank you. All good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Please welcome to the stage world-class tennis champion, investor, and entrepreneur Maria Sharapova with Bloomberg's Jason Kelly.
All right.
Hello.
Here we are.
Hi.
So very happy to say hello again to you.
Yeah, second time this week.
Second time this week.
What are we doing?
It's Sharapova week for me, which is a really cool way to spend a week.
I'm sorry.
No, it's the best. So full tease ahead. Maria and I sat down earlier this week to tape an episode of a show that we'll be launching next year with Alex Rodriguez called The Deal.
Yes.
It was a fascinating conversation, sort of a prelude, to this conversation. And the reason Alex and I talked to you, the reason I wanted to talk to you today is you have had one of the most fascinating careers at this intersection of sports, business, and culture that we talk so much about.
Yeah.
And so let's start back in the sort of early 2000s. And I think 2004, I mean, by the way, your book is incredible. I read it in preparation for this. Highly recommend.
Slightly scary.
Yeah.
But you've done your homework for a journalist.
Wow. And it's a terrific read. And one of the things that really comes through is, these really key decisions that you make as a business person, not just as an athlete.
Yeah.
So take us back to 2004. You win Wimbledon, because that feels like obviously a catalytic moment for you as an athlete, but really a catalytic moment for you as a business person too.
It really was, yeah, unknowingly. As a young teenage girl, I was born in Russia, went to the United States as a 5-year-old with my father, and I had a small talent, and my dad had a big vision, and I followed his steps and his guidance. And at 17 years old, I was playing the finals of Wimbledon and on the biggest stage of my career, essentially, against Serena Williams. And there was a lot on the line, but as a teenager, you're not really aware of what's on the line except a tennis match and then perhaps a ball where you get to wear a nice dress, and they say you dance at the ball. There's no dancing, thank goodness. But it was a lesson in partnerships and winning. Going back to New York and going through the media rounds, you realize it was the moment that I realized when sport was more than just about winning and losing, that this was a business, that you walk out onto the stage and you have a platform and you have a voice, and yes, you're a competitor and you're being true to who you are, and so much relies on winning, but you also have this special platform, and you have business decisions to make along with the team that you choose. So it was the beginning of a long-standing partnership with several brands and decisions that I had to say, a lot of no's. I had to choose a lot of people, that I had to unfortunately say no to so that it could open up, better doors for the yes.
I want to talk about that. I'm so glad you went there, because it's something that comes out in your book very clearly. It's something that, interestingly enough, is so critical to the partnership between you and your father in making those decisions, that for someone who literally puts it all on the line. He quits his job, as you say. You move here when you're 5 years old. The powerful no's that he said and that you guys said together. Where does that come from? And give us a sense of why that was why no was such a powerful thing to say.
I think from a young age, he instilled in me that the most powerful yes in the business room was winning a match on center court. Sure. Like, there's no better yes than that. And that was always my goal and always my purpose. And even though I understood the other side of it, like when I woke up, the one thing was about becoming better and better, of working hard, of understanding that today might be a good day. I put a few days together, and it ends up being a great week. And what happens when you win? You get more offers and you get bigger opportunities and, brand alignments, and some come at the right time and some come at the wrong time, and you have to be very selective, because as a professional tennis player, 10 months out of the year, you are traveling from China to the US to everywhere, and you only have, I think I had about 16 production days. So you can understand, when a company's coming in, they're asking for 3 or 4. How many of those, can you commit to? So the initial alignment is the brand. Where are they positioning you? Where are they marketing you? Is it a market that you're interested in? Is that where you want to be? Like, I love playing in Asia. I had a fantastic fan base in Asia. So is the company that I want to work with, how are they going to market, and how much money are they going to put into my business in that part of the world that is special to me?
And then that obviously means you have to say no to other people, and
that's okay. And that's the tough part in today's generation, is how do you say no, and not just to the money, but to the events and to the travel, while maintaining your core goal and your vision, because ultimately that's what brings the money, right? That's what brings the opportunities.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this transition that you make, from playing full time to, being an investor, being a business person, full on, full time. What is that transition like? You obviously didn't wake up one morning and say, no, I was just playing tennis and now I'm a business person. But what is that moment like when
you say I'm moving on to something else?
In my career, it was pretty clear. I was in my early 30s. This was just several years, 3 years ago, actually, to be exact.
2020,
And my body was ready. And actually, what was interesting is throughout my career, my stubbornness in my tennis and business was actually what propelled me and what made me successful. But toward the end of my career, I think it kind of prohibited me from experiencing some of the great things in life and motherhood and starting a family and which is a very important and real conversation as a female athlete that I had to have with myself and but also in business. Like it kind of, I was so focused on getting my shoulder better and my body ready and I knew that it wasn't quite there in your early 30s. It's a tough stage to kind of be back to the level that you were as a teenager. So it kind of prohibited me from, working on my foundation. But I started that as a young teenager when I realized that platform was there, that those brands that were paying me millions of dollars also had the chance to market me in a way that I was comfortable with. Like I had a very direct communication with them, the Nikes and Tiffany and Tag Heuers, and they were incredible collaborations. When I would be injured, like I'd go and I'd email Adam Silver and I'd ask him if I can come in for a week to shadow him in his offices. I went to HBS for several weeks to do a few summer programs. So I was always curious. It wasn't popular in 2004 to swim in several lanes, like to be an athlete and to be good at something else or be fascinated by design. Like you had one thing and you had to stick to it. And I didn't appreciate that. Like I would come to my hotel room and I had several hours of time where I needed to relax and
rest, and I couldn't train. I had finished the day, and I wanted to open up my mind to other things, and this was my way of building my foundation for the next act.
And so in this next act, I mean, there is a pretty clear through line, just looking at your portfolio of businesses. It is about resilience. It's about pressure. It's about women. Like, so how does that come together how does it manifest in the deals that you're doing now?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I became increasingly passionate about after I retired, was acknowledging the fact that focus and this performance mindset was a huge asset that I had gained and that I had worked on and perfected for over 20 years. And now working through brands and founders, I just recently announced a collaboration with the Amman Hotel Group where I bring in the best talents in sports recovery and performance mindset in retreats and offering it there to their clientele. Our first one is actually in Phuket in February. So working through what that means, I mean, if you see the stats of Fortune 500 female CEOs, 80% of those women have played sport competitively through their life journey. And all those skill sets that they've built, to me, they were part of this first chapter, right? But how do they now apply to everything else I'm doing? And I'm so curious and interested in how I can bring that to the audience now and make it more mainstream and accessible.
So one of the really interesting things that happened earlier this year, and we've talked a little bit about this offline, off stage, is Breakpoint comes out.
Yeah.
It's
That's the tennis show.
Drive to Survive for tennis. Which is sort of the shorthand for it. And there you are. And actually,
I mean, you'd
there's
miss
the
me
show.
if you blink, but
no, you were. I mean, you come through, and I think what's interesting is you sort of see you I saw you at least in a different light. It's also interesting to put this question to you of now you are in the world of business.
Yeah.
You understand tennis literally as well as anyone. What does tennis need to do as a business?
I mean, it's a loaded question.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Much. There are a lot of options and roads. And I mean, look, let's start with the fact you had Ted on stage, and I was listening to his talk on my way here, and he spoke about engagement and the importance of engagement. I mean, you had Coco Gauff just winning her first major at the U.S. Open in New York City. I mean, the crowd, the bridging culture, sport, fashion, all in that moment. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, how many people know that she's playing a tournament in Beijing? Probably, I mean, she got to the semifinals, lost to the number one player in the world, but I'm sure 99% of the audience at the US Open had no idea where she was playing next. That's, I mean, right away off the bat, that's a problem. I mean, you can say in 2004, after winning Grand Slam, when Facebook was really the only way that I could interact with a fan base just with a photo, or they'd see a video of myself. Now you actually know, what does your fan eat, where exactly do they live, what are they snacking on at 3 p.m. I mean, you have this incredible connection to the fan audience. There's so much untapped financial potential in the sport. There's a lot of talk about this female sport and tennis going into Saudi Arabia. I'm sure that's a conversation we'll be speaking about the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's happening, and what is our comfort level, and how are we changing everything that's been going on there and creating a positive effect and changing the message. There's a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I mean, when you talk about the women's tour, WTA just takes on investment from CVC, which has been obviously a very ambitious sport investor from a private equity perspective. There's more than talk about merging the ATP and the WTA.
That's not going to happen.
You don't think it's going to happen?
Not soon. No.
Yeah.
I mean, just this week there's a men's tournament actually still happening in Shanghai with the winner's prize check $1.2 million. In the same week, there's a women's tournament in China with the winner's check at $120,000. I mean,
10x.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers, I don't know if anyone's familiar with those numbers, but you go to a Grand Slam and we are celebrating equal prize money at the Grand Slams. Great, those are the biggest events with the biggest attention, media, the buzz. But then the rest of the tour, which is the 8 or 9 other months, the disparity is insane.
Yeah.
And that needs to be addressed.
And will that only be addressed if there's how does that get fixed?
Possibly. I mean, there's so many entities. You have the WTA, you have the ATP, you have the ITF, you have the tours being on the same page, on the same schedule. Ownership of tournaments is different. So how do you align the calendar when you have so many events throughout the year? How do you make it accessible, interesting, engaging? It will take time. It's not, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I sure hope it does.
And what do you make of this next generation? You mentioned Coco. Super exciting, I think, for American tennis, especially. In every sport, there's like, well, there'll never be another one like X, or the sport is gonna, shrivel up after Serena or the Big Four or whatever. Like, how do you see this next generation coming through?
Yeah, I really think she was the best thing that could have happened to women's tennis, and I like the way that in which way she won. She was someone that had the ability, the talent, the voice, already had her platform, and I think the expectations were so high, and she didn't quite meet them in the first few years. And the fact that she had to go through those ups and downs and then go through it and then achieve something huge will allow her, she already has the breathing space to fail, then get back on the stage, as opposed to some athletes who come out young, are victorious, and just it takes a long while, and sometimes they can never find their true self, like going back to the basics. But with her, I mean, in the men's game, you have Alcaraz, you have Sinner, you have so many storylines, and the women are catching up. There's inconsistencies. The number one player in the world shifts quite more than in the men's, but it will always be up and down, right?
And so, only about a minute or so left. I mean, so as you sit here in 2023, you're 3 years on from retirement. Obviously, you've been building this empire of sorts, for a long time in terms of your business ambitions. What is there a singular goal that you have, or as you look down over the next couple of years, what really constitutes success for you?
Oh, it's a lot. I mean, it's a transitioning from something that you've done for over 20 years of your life into something new. A lot of my friends, knowing that I was building a foundation towards the second act, knowing how excited and passionate I was about it, they were telling me how it would be more successful than I was doing on the court, and I have to keep correcting them that it took me more than 12 years on the back courts, court 25, 30, and just honing in on my skills and losing and sweat and tears to get to this stage of winning. And sometimes you have to get back to reality and small steps and building. I love to work. When someone asks me what I miss about the sport is waking up and putting on my uniform, which was, my swoosh, and I'd get out and it would feel, not because it was about what I was wearing, but because it changed my mindset. I was going out there to be disciplined and focused, and when I would perform that one task, I knew that I'd made that accomplishment. Now, having a 15-month-old boy that's not, in my pajamas, run to his room as quickly as I can, so my goals have slightly shifted. But I continue to stay curious, to keep learning. It takes time to to develop a strong foundation in the next chapter of someone's life, and I'm excited to bring all the fans that I've had for several years on this journey, and get to talk to you about it.
We're excited to follow you in this next chapter. Thank you so much. Great
Thanks
to see you.
for having me.
Thank you, guys.
And we're on time.
And we're on time. On time.
Please welcome to the stage HYBE founder and chairman Si-Hyuk with Bloomberg Sohee Kim and Lucas Shaw.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We're doing this one a little bit differently. We do have a translator here, even though Bong speaks really good English. I want to start because as Sohee has here, you're on the cover of the latest issue of Business Week with a story about your newest act. We don't know the name yet. We don't know who's in it yet. But can you tell us where you got the idea for Dream Academy?
우선 심플한 수준에서 먼저 대답을 드리자면 사실 K-팝의 방법론을 수출하는 것이 K-팝의 궁극적인 모델이 돼야 된다는 거는 하이브라는 회사가 생기기 이전부터 K-팝을 만들었다고 할 수 있는 SM의 창업자였던 이수만 씨에게서부터 내려왔던 아이디어예요. 그리고 그것이 맞다고 생각했기 때문에 모든 회사들이 그것을 이루기를 원했고 이제 시대가 맞게 와서 저희가 그것을 이어받아서 하고 있다는 게 우선 굉장히 가벼운 레이어에서의 대답이 될 수 있을 것 같고요.
So a simple answer would be the idea of exporting the K-pop methodology has actually been a mission or a goal for K-pop even before HYBE. So that was the idea of the founder of SM Entertainment, Lee Soo-man, and since then. So, a lot of many Korean companies have tried to achieve this goal of exporting the K-pop methodology, and the timing was right for us at HYBE to receive this mission and carry it on.
조금 복잡한 레벨에서 얘기를 드리자면 사실 K-팝은 대중음악 역사상 가장 매시브한 소비가 일어나는 산업이고 그런 관점에서 사실 회사에게 분명히 좋은 점이 있습니다. 그렇지만 동시에 그런 특수성 때문에 확장에 있어서 분명히 어려움이 있다는 건 명확하고요. 그래서 확장성을 가지고 우리가 소위 세계 최고의 음악 시장이라고 하는 미국 시장을 기반으로 하는 글로벌 음악 시장에서 조금 더 많은 쉐어를 가져가고 좀 더 많은 팬들을 얻기 위해서는 외연과 내포 양쪽에서의 확장이 필요하다고 생각했고요. 그리고 내포적으로는 그래서 한국인이 아닌 혹은 극동아시아인이 아닌 멤버들로 출발할 수 있는 그러나 K-팝 방법론에 따른 밴드를 만들어야겠다고 생각을 했고 외연적으로는 그걸 통해서 보통의 K-팝 팬처럼 아주 매시브한 소비를 하지 않더라도 라이트하게 소비하면서도 팝의 일환인 장르로서 K-팝을 받아들이는 팬들이 늘어나기를 원했고 그 실험의 일환으로 첫 번째로 드림 아카데미를 런칭하게 된 거고요. 사실 드림 아카데미의 성패 여부와 상관없이 저는 이런 테스트를 다양한 층위와 다양한 버짓으로 계속해서 진행할 생각이래. 향후 2, 3년간 유사하면서도 베리어블한 많은 시도들을 만날 수 있을 겁니다.
So that was a simple answer. And a more complex answer is K-pop is characterized by the most massive level of consumption in the history of music and pop music. So that's a good thing for a company as well. But that's also a challenge because expansion, due to this characteristic, the challenge is expansion and further expansion may be difficult. So, that is why the goal was to focusing on the US market, the biggest music market in the world, as well as the global market, are to try to increase our market share and also increase the number of fans following it in both through internal expansion and external expansion. So that internal expansion would be composing a group made of members who are not Korean or East Asian. So, a group composed of other members. And also externally, that would be to, through this new group, we would be able to engage and find new fans who may not engage in the massive consumption that characterized K-pop before, but who are willing to accept K-pop or this music of this group as pop and still enjoy the music and become a fan. So the Dream Academy is the testing of this method or this methodology. And regardless of the success rate or the failure rate of this particular test, we will continue to engage in similar tests with a variety of budgets and scale over the next 2-3 years.
Now, for those unfamiliar with, you were talking about the process, sort of the music industry in South Korea is known for what they call T&D, training and development. How would you characterize how that works?
한국에서는 이제 T&D라는 이제 트레이닝 앤 디벨롭먼트라는 과정이 있잖아요. 그래서 혹시 이거에 대해서 T&D 과정에 대해서 잘 모르시는 분들을 위해서 어떻게 설명을 해주실 수가 있나요?
T&D 과정이라는 걸 이해하기 제일 쉬운 방법은 발레나 그 올림픽 애틀리언 같은 그 특별한 스킬을 가진 분들을 어떤 식으로 훈련해서 그 목표를 달성하게 하는가를 참고하는 게 제일 좋을 것 같아요. 사실 이제 미국 음악 산업에서는 아티스트가 스스로의 힘으로 자기의 재능을 어느 정도 발현시킨 뒤에 그들이 일정 부분의 팬을 갖고 레이블이 그들을 찾아내는 것을 아티스트 디벨롭먼트라고 생각한다면 K-팝에서는 조금 더 어린 시절에 재능 있는 분들을 만나서 그분들을 발굴하고 그분들이 자기 재능을 발현시킬 수 있도록 음악이나 춤, 스테이지에서 매너 등을 가르치는 과정을 가져가고 있고요. 짧게는 1년, 길게는 2, 3년 정도를 가져가고 있는데 결국 이것이 그래서 어떻게 구체적으로 이루어지는가라고 생각했을 때는 발레 연습생들이 어떻게 성장하는가 혹은 그 엘리트 체육인들이 어떤 식으로 성장하는가를 생각하면 될 것 같습니다. 다만 이제 그 과정에 있어서 제가 말씀드린 예시만큼 엄격하거나 굉장히 이렇게 하드한 디서플린이 적용되지는 않고요. 크리에이티비티가 굉장히 중요하기 때문에 그들의 자율성을 충분히 보장할 수 있는 선에서 스스로의 선택으로 그 성장할 수 있도록 돕는 것이 K-팝에서의 T&D라고 말씀드릴 수 있을 것 같아요.
So to understand the training and development or the T&D system, I think the easiest analogy would be think of ballet, training for ballet or training for an elite athlete, like an Olympic athlete. So it's really to, like an athlete, try to develop the ability so that they can train and then teach them and guide them in achieving their goal. So in the United States, for labels, training and development or developing of an artist is usually an artist that continues to build up his or her skills and then is discovered by the label, or is discovered and accumulates fans, and the label finds this artist and then debuts. So that's sort of the typical debut or the development process. In K-pop, is slightly different. It starts at a somewhat of a younger age, and the company will try to find young, talented people, and then try to provide them training in music, training in choreography and dance, training in stage manners. And this T&D process can take up to a year or sometimes 2 to 3 years. And then the way it's done specifically, again, is easy to, if you think about how a ballet, training for ballet or training for elite athletes. Of course, the K-pop T&D process is not as strict or rigorous as these examples of, really world-class athletes or, people training in ballet. Because creativity is very important for developing artists, so we try to make sure that there's enough autonomy there, and then they make enough choices and self-driven, and we help them so that they can grow and develop as artists.
So you are partnering with the Universal Music Group, and how is the cooperation going, and what's the role behind this project?
성공과 실패의 관점에서 말씀드리자면 당연히 이 팀이 세계 최고의 밴드가 되고 그래서 그걸 통해서 말씀드렸다시피 K-팝의 외연을 확장하고 그래서 K-팝이 영속성을 갖는 데 기여하는 것이겠지만 모든 프로젝트란 거는 반드시 성공과 실패가 아닌 심지어 실패에서도 배울 게 있기 때문에 근본적인 골은 우리가 가지고 있는 많은 가설들, K-팝의 한계에 대한 가설들 그리고 확장 가능성에 대한 가설들을 검증하고 그로부터 다음 레벨로 나갈 수 있는 것들을 얻어내는 거라고 생각하고요. 사실은 이들의 본격적인 런칭은 내년 중순임에도 이번 유튜브에서 진행되고 있는 드림 아카데미 오디션을 통해서도 굉장히 많은 가설들이 검증되었고 그걸 통해서 이미 리비짓을 통해 다음 스텝으로 또 이동하고 있어요. 그래서 이런 것들이 하이브 같은 회사에게는 굉장히 큰 도움이 된다고 생각을 하고 있고 오히려 이런 것을 우리의 1차적 골로 봐야 된다고 생각을 해요.
So our goals, if we think of our goals in terms of failure and success, of course, our goal is to become the biggest band in the world and the best band in the world. And of course, to achieve that external expansion of K-pop that I earlier mentioned, to achieve further sustainability and continuability of the continuability of K-pop. But not everything is determined or by just simple success or failure. There's a lot of learns that you can draw from even failure. So, for this project, I've set up a number of hypotheses about K-pop and to explore the possibilities of expanding K-pop, and a lot of these hypotheses we're able to address and answer through this project. So the group itself will launch in the middle of next year, but even now we are uploading content on YouTube, our YouTube-based audition program, and we have been able to verify many of these hypotheses that we started out with, as well as determine what our next steps are going to be. So, for a company like this is very helpful. For a company like HYBE, this is a very helpful process.
So now you must be spending a lot of time in LA. So 20 years ago, you first came in LA, you were in early 30s. So you shared a very tiny room with JYP Entertainment founder, like Park Jin-young. And now you are inviting your friends and tech founders from Korea to your house, the beautiful mansion in Bel Air. So would you please share how your life and career have changed since then?
네. 그래서 이렇게 이제 바뀌었는데 처음 미국에 오셨을 때에 비해서 어떤 삶과 그리고 커리어가 어떻게 변화가 됐는지 어떻게 바뀌셨는지 말씀해 주실 수 있나요?
이미 잘 묘사해 주셨듯이 삶 자체가 완전히 바뀌었죠. 왜냐하면 사실 남자 둘이 누우면은 서로 배가 만져질 정도로 좁은 방에서 살다가 지금은 미국의 LA에서도 가장 그 호화주택가라고 하는 벨레어에서 굉장히 커다란 맨션을 가지고 살고 있으니까 삶이 바뀌었지만 저는 그런 외연적인 변화가 저에게 굉장히 중요하다고 솔직히 생각하지는 않습니다. 이런 제가 맨션을 구입한 것도 사실은 비즈니스에 이것이 분명하게 도움이 되기 때문에 구입을 한 것이고 사실 저의 삶은 기본적으로 크게 변하지 않은 것 같아요. 우선 저한테 가장 중요한 게 음악이라는 점에서 그렇고 그때나 지금이나 더 좋은 음악을 만들고 더 많은 사람들이 사랑할 수 있는 음악들을 만들겠다는 의지에도 변화가 없고요. 그때나 지금이나 사실 산업이 가지고 있는 잘못된 점들을 개선하고 혁신해서 이 산업에 종사하는 분들에게 더 좋은 기회들, 여기서 종사한다는 거는 직원뿐만이 아니라 아티스트들, 매니저들, 모든 사람들을 얘기하는 거고요. 그래서 그것들을 추구한다는 데 있어서는 변화된 게 없는 것 같아요. 뭐 그때는 테크와의 관계성이 되게 멀었지만 지금은 사실은 핫테크 컴퍼니가 됐다는 정도가 다른 점이겠지만 그것이 제 삶의 본질적인 거를 바꾸지는 못한다고 생각하고요. 너무 정답 같은 얘기를 해서 죄송한데 사실 제가 그런 식으로 살아서 다른 얘기를 할 게 없는 것 같아요.
It is as you described, my life has changed considerably. You know, as you said, when I was here with HYBE, we were living in a room that was so small, if we lay down together and reached out, we could basically lay our hands on each other's stomach. So that's where we were. And now, as you said, you know, I have a mansion in one of the best, you know, nicest neighborhoods in LA, in Bel Air. So life has definitely changed externally, but I think these external changes, I think, are not that important to me. The reason I purchased that house in Bel Air, the mansion, as you said, is I felt that it would help with my business and meeting people here. So my life, I think, fundamentally has not changed. I still consider music to be the most important thing of making good music and, you know, making music for more people, good music for more people to enjoy. That's still my most important thing and my will. So even then and now, I'm still committed to finding the things that are wrong in the industry, and improving these things and innovating things so that everybody in the music community, in the industry, can have more opportunities. When I say, you know, everyone in the community, this is not just people who are working in the music industry, but this includes artists and managers as well. So, and of course, back then we were somewhat more distant from the tech sphere than we are now. Right now, we're basically half tech company. But again, I don't think the fundamentals have changed very much. I know this is a very kind of a pad answer, but this really is how I feel. So, you know, this is really the answer that I can give you.
I'm wondering, you know, you mentioned you're spending more time here. One of the reasons you're spending more time here is you're expanding your business outside of Korea, and one of the reasons you're doing that is because you've expressed some concern about sort of the growth and the state of the Korean music business. You know, from the outside, I think most people, it seems like K-pop has just exploded over the last few years. But what are you seeing that worries you, and what are you doing or how do you address that?
미국에서의 K-팝은 최근 굉장히 드라마틱하게 성장하고 있습니다. 근데 그에 비해서 사실 그 외 지역, 특히 동남아에서의 지표가 떨어지고 있다라는 게 사실이고요. 그다음에 일본은 K-팝 자체는 성장하고 있지만 일본 음악 시장이 지난 10년간 변화가 없었어요. 그래서 그런 지점에서 K-팝의 성장을 위해서는 결국 미국 시장만이 답이었기 때문에 제가 미국으로 넘어온 것도 있고요. 다만 이제 단순히 K-팝의 확장만을 위해서 미국에 넘어온 건 아닙니다. 근본적으로 음악에서 가장 큰 시장은 미국이고 어쨌든 기업이라는 것은 기본적으로 성장이 의무로서 주어지는 것이기 때문에 더 큰 시장에서 더 큰 기회를 찾아내고 그것을 통해서 음악 산업을 더 발전시킬 수 있는데 기여하려면 미국이 맞다고 생각해서 미국에 살고 있는 거라고 말씀드리는 게 더 맞을 것 같아요.
It is true that K-pop has seen dramatic growth in the United States, but in other markets, we are not seeing that as much. For example, in Southeast Asia, the numbers are if you look at the indexes and the numbers, they are falling. For the Japanese market, yes, K-pop is growing, but the music market as a whole in Japan has not grown in the past 10 years. So we felt that for the growth of K-pop and the continued growth of K-pop, the answer lies in the United States, and that is why I am here in the United States and spending time in the United States. But of course, I'm not here just to pursue the growth of K-pop. really fundamentally, the United States is the biggest and the most important music market in the world. And one of the primary duties of a company and a business is to grow and continue to grow. So we are here looking at the United States, and here in the United States to look for and pursue a bigger market, look for bigger opportunities and more opportunities in our quest to, again, create more opportunities for the music community and the music industry as a whole.
You've acquired here Ithaca Holdings, which is Scooter Braun's company. You acquired QC, which is an Atlanta-based record label. How have you found, the processes that companies use in the U.S. are fairly different from those in South Korea. Have you found the differences? Have you found managing acts here versus at home?
그래서 아시다시피 여러 회사를 인수를 하셨는데 퀴스도 그렇고 이태리가 그렇고 아마 미국에서 이제 비즈니스하는 방법이나 과정이 매니지먼트라든지 비즈니스로 하는 과정이 많이 다르다는 거를 보셨을 것 같아요. 그래서 실제로 그렇게 다르게 느끼시는지 어떤 점들을 다르게 이제 좀 보시고 느끼셨는지.
기본적으로 K-팝과 미국 팝 시장은 산업 구조가 근본적으로 많이 다르다라고 생각을 해요. 우선 미국에서는 모든 경제 구조가 아티스트를 중심으로 돌아가고 모든 의사결정은 완전히 홀리 아티스트가 하게 되어 있기 때문에 아티스트가 어떤 의사결정을 하고 그거로부터 생기는 여러 가지 수입들을 로열티 형태로 많은 이제 주변의 매니저나 레이블이나 수많은 서비스 제공업자들이 가져가는 형태로 되어 있기 때문에 근본적으로 한국하고의 구조는 되게 다르다고 생각합니다. 물론 한국에서도 계약서에 의해서 아티스트의 권리가 홀리 보존되게 되어 있지만 아티스트가 출발할 때부터 회사와의 협업 관계를 통해서 시장을 만들어 간다는 것에 대한 컨센서스가 있기 때문에 사실 여러 가지 일을 진행할 때 비즈니스가 항상 최우선적인 선택의 기준이 될 때가 많아요. 그에 비해서 여기서는 사실 아티스트 본인의 기준, 그리고 그 기준은 반드시 비즈니스화해서 해야 될 이유가 없고, 그래서 이제 그런 부분들이 근본적으로 많이 다르다고 생각합니다.
I think there are fundamental differences between the industry, the music industry in K-pop and the U.S. pop, just the structure of the industry itself. In the United States, the artist is really at the center and the most important thing, and the artist is the main decision maker and the most important decision maker. And then the artist will make the decisions, and then any profits or revenues that are generated from these decisions and what the artist will do will be distributed through the form of royalty to the label or management and a variety of service providers. But again, the industry is fundamentally different. In Korea, of course, through contracts with the label and the management companies, rights are guaranteed to the artist. But a market difference is the artist is a partner to the company in making those business decisions. So there's an understanding that the artist and the company is working together to develop the market. So sometimes some of the decisions, and there are often times when the decision will be made based on not solely by the will of the artist, but as a business decision, what the decision calls for. So this, again, here, it's based on the artist and the artist's decision making, and not always business concerns that drive decisions here in the United States.
Now, speaking of contracts, there's been a lot of news about a couple of your U.S. artists related to contracts. What is the latest in the conversations between your company and Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande, and do you expect to keep working with them in the future?
계약에 대해서 이제 많이 설랑설레가 오가고 있는데요. 특히 이제 저스틴 비버하고 아리아나 그란데하고의 계약 관계가 어떻게 지금 상황이 어떻게 돼 있고 앞으로도 이 두 아티스트하고 계속 일을 하실 이제 회사가 계속 일을 해나가실 예정인가요?
네, 여러 가지 인터뷰에서도 제가 동일하게 대답을 했는데 제가 여기서 공개적으로 이 건에 대해서 어떤 언급을 하기에는 적절하지 않은 것 같아요. 그래서 제가 이걸 simply 간단하게 얘기를 하자면 no comment가 저한테는 정확한 대답인 것 같은데 어떻든 여전히 스쿠터 브라운이 저희 회사를 운영하고 있고 이것에 대해서 제 신뢰가 변하지 않았다. 그 부분이 아마도 대답을 가름할 수 있지 않을까 기대해 봅니다.
So I've been asked a similar question in a number of interviews, and I don't think it's wholly appropriate for me to comment, officially comment and publicly comment about those contractual and issues. But so the right answer for me to say would be to say no comment. But again, Scooter Braun continues to operate our company, and he has our company here. And the fact that my trust in Scooter Braun has not changed, I think, provides an answer in and of itself.
So let's talk about BTS, the biggest boy band in the world at the moment. So
Lucas, there's an issue.
I have an issue?
No? Okay.
With BTS? No, I have no issue with BTS.
An issue about the former question.
Oh, no.
I see.
Okay, let's move to BTS.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a sticker. So the last 10 years with BTS was phenomenal, and they all signed up, like renewed their contracts in September, and it's a very rare thing among K-pop agencies and even for like US artists, I believe. So what does it mean to you, and what do you want to do with them, like once they come back as a group in 2025?
그래서 지난 10년 동안 BTS의 성장을 그리고 굉장히 눈부신 그런 활동을 했잖아요. 그리고 제가 알기로는 이제 9월 달에 재계약을 진행을 했는데 사실 이런 오랜 기간 동안 재계약을 하는 거는 한국 아티스트도 그렇고 미국 아티스트로서 이제 흔한 게 아닌데 이런 재계약을 한 게 어떤 의미가 있는지 그리고 앞으로 이제 2025년에 완전체로 컴백을 하면은 BTS가 또 어떤 것들을 하고 싶으신지.
뭐 기업으로서의 어떤 성장에 있어서 BTS가 필요하다는 건 두말할 나위가 없는데 사실 그런 점보다는 매니지먼트 컴퍼니 혹은 레이블로서의 하이브를 BTS 같은 위대한 회사, 그 가수가 다시 인정해줬다라는 부분에 그 가치가 있다고 생각하고 정말로 진심으로 기뻤고요. 또 그 이면에 이 계약 과정을 통해서 원래도 저랑 BTS 멤버들이 굉장히 사이가 좋았지만 사실 항상 이 니고시에이션에는 진통이 따르기 때문에 그 진통을 해결해가는 과정에서 더 돈독해진 부분이 있어요. 사실 이 이상 친할 수 있나 싶을 만큼 친했음에도 또 서로를 조금 더 이해하게 된 부분이 있고 그래서 그것이 사실 매니저로서 살아가는 인생이라는 게 되게 고통이 많은데 그 와중에 저한테는 최근에 아주 가장 큰 행복이었던 것 같다라는 얘기를 하고 싶고요. 그리고 마지막으로는 질문하신 대로 사실 BTS라는 팀에게 2015년에 발표했었던 화양연화 시리즈라는 앨범들은 굉장히 의미가 큰 앨범입니다. 그것이 그들을 아티스트로서 성장시키기도 했고 또 아티스트로서의 그들의 삶을 그대로 반영했던 것이고 그걸 통해서 사실 전 세계적인 반향을 일으키는 밴드가 됐기 때문에 그래서 사실 그들이 어릴 때부터 같이 10주년 앨범을 만들자라는 얘기를 했었는데 사실 이번 재계약이 성공되지 못했으면 10주년 앨범이 나오긴 했겠지만 최소한 저랑 만들진 않았겠죠. 근데 이제 그걸 같이 그 앨범을 만들었던 사람들이 모여서 다시 할 수 있게 됐고 우리가 어렸을 때 했던 약속을 지킬 수 있다는 게 저한테는 굉장히 중요한 것 같고 모두 그 순간을 기다려주셨으면 좋겠습니다. 그러고 보니까 짐작은 해도 아무도 모르던 얘기였는데 10주년 기념 이벤트 및 앨범 등이 준비되고 있다는 걸 여기서 처음 얘기하게 된 것 같네요.
So as for the growth of a company, BTS, and the fact that we need BTS, I think is needless to say. But as a management company, and as a music label, for a company like HYBE, for artists with such stature and great artists as BTS to have chosen us again as their manager and as their label, I think is very valuable for our company and something that makes us very, very happy. And I've become closer to the members during the contract process. And I felt before, like how can I even be closer to these people? But every contract and every renegotiation involves some pain and some travails. But through this process, I've become even closer, and we've come to understand each other more and more. So, this has been a source of great joy for me. And as you know, in 2015, BTS, released its 화양연화, or the Most Beautiful Woman in Life album and the album series. And this was a very important album series for them. It showed their growth as artists. It reflected their lives and who they were and the lives they're living. And this became one of the springboards that launched them into global stardom as a global band. So, and when we were young and we were all working together, we said to each other, let's make sure we put out a 10-year anniversary album and a project. Now, even if they hadn't signed with us, they still would have released it, just not with us. They would have done it with somebody else. But it's very important to me that I'm able to keep this promise, and we're able to work on this together. And in fact, I think many people may have guessed it, but I believe this is the first time that I am mentioning in public that there is going to be a 10-year anniversary in a project.
So excited about that. So I have to cover that 2025 new album by BTS. One last question. So if you can share any dream goal for yourself, would you please share with us?
컴퍼니로서 회사로서의 하이브에 대해서 제가 기대하는 바는 제가 있건 없건 혹은 어떤 IP가 잘 되건 못 되건 이것이 서스테이너블하고 영속 가능한 그 회사의 형태로 변해가는 것이고 어떤 회사도 가만히 놔둬도 그런 회사는 없지만 사실 많은 엔터테인먼트 컴퍼니들은 IP 하나에 대한 의존성이 너무 높기 때문에 이 회사가 그런 것들에 너무 기대지 않고 또 어떤 특정한 크리에이터나 특정한 경영인한테 기대지 않고 지속 가능한 기업이 되는 것이 저의 골이고요. 그것은 단지 뭐 10년 비전은 아닌 것 같아요. 그것은 계속해서 퍼스윙해야 되는 골인 것 같고 개인으로서는 10년 뒤에는 은퇴한 삶을 살고 싶어요. 그것은 제가 이 일에 애정이 없기 때문이가 아니고 저는 오히려 이 일을 죽을 때까지 하고 싶은데 앞에서 말한 전제가 저에겐 되게 중요한데 이 기업이 10년 뒤에도 제가 운영하고 있는 기업이라면 과연 그런 기업이 사람한테 의존하지 않는 기업이 될 수 있을까에 대한 고민이 제가 있습니다. 그래서 지금 제가 이 자리에서 뭐 10년 뒤에 은퇴하겠다는 얘기를 어나운스하는 건 전혀 아니고요. 이상적으로 볼 때 저희가 이 회사의 키맨이 아니어도 돌아가는 회사가 되길 바라고 그것이 저에게 너무 중요하기 때문에 그것이 성립한다면 그러니까 if가 많은 얘기들인데 저는 자연스럽게 회사의 후학들을 위해서 후배들이 회사를 운영할 수 있게 물러날 수 있지 않을까 뭐 이 정도의 얘기예요. 이것이 잘못 곡해돼서 저 은퇴 발표로 전달되지 않았으면 좋겠습니다.
So as a business, what I expect is that for us to, whoever is in the company, or even if the certain IP is not successful, or certain artist or something project is not successful, that the company is continuous and sustainable. A lot of entertainment companies tend to rely on a single IP a lot. So what I expect and what I would like to see is that it doesn't rely on just one manager or one creator, and that the company continues to sustain itself. And so this is not like a 10-year goal for me or the company. This is more of really a continuous goal. And me personally, I think, I would like to, if I can, retire in 10 years, if we're talking, 10 years, because it's not because I have no passion for this work, but, actually, it's because of the premise that I mentioned earlier, that if 10 years later, I'm still running this company and it still relies on me, then have we as a company reached that goal of not relying on a single person, a single entrepreneur, and achieving the sustainability? So I'm not announcing my retirement here, that I'm going to retire in 10 years, but this is the ideal, that the company should be running and sustaining itself without any single person. So this is very important for me and an important goal for the company. So there's a lot of ifs here, and hopefully when all of these ifs are kind of fulfilled, then I'll be able to help train other people who will be able to drive the future of the company industry. So I just want to make sure that that doesn't go out in the wrong way or misunderstood, that I'm about to retire. I'm announcing my retirement in 10 years. So
look, if I were a billionaire, I'd retire too. Bong, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Please welcome to the stage host and executive producer of Taste the Nation, Padma Lakshmi, with Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde.
Well, hello, everyone. We are going to be stirring up an appetite with this conversation, and then you shall go out and satisfy that appetite. But first, I want to welcome Padma to flying over from New York to LA to be with us today. And I think we need to take a moment in the global context in which we find ourselves. You, through your shows, discuss light and the dark, and the highs and the lows, and the emotional and the not. And so at this moment, when we're thinking of people wanting to learn about business and be excited about what's to come, there is also a pain, a weight on the world right now with what's happening with Israel and Hamas. How much do you feel that in these moments with your audience you have to respond to that? Is it something that you're you're also feeling and empathizing, I'm sure, with many of your audience.
Well, I mean, most of all, I'm feeling really sad about what's happening. Like many of us, you know, we feel helpless. And I don't think everybody needs to comment on everything. And I feel like I certainly don't. We were, you know, people kept saying, aren't you going to say anything? Aren't you going to say anything? And it's difficult because you also don't want to muddy the waters. And it's easy to get caught up in all of that. And of course, it's atrocious what's happened. And it's one of those issues that's really hard to talk about, especially online and short format in social media, because anything you say is going to be, you know, a platitude. And if you express empathy for one group, that means, you know, you're an anti-Semite. If you express empathy for the horrible, horrible thing that's happened right now, then you don't believe that, you know, these people over here, the Palestinians, should have a homeland. I think it's very complex, but I also think that you just say something simple that you know you really believe in, and so if someone comes at you about it, you can defend it, and then you move on. Because I'm not a politician, I'm not a policymaker, I certainly am not even from the Middle East. So as a bystander, as a parent, I'm very scared because it's a loss of human life in an area that suffered so much. And considering what's going on in Ukraine, I think it's also got the real potential to escalate and spread. We're seeing the rise of fascism in a lot of the world, and we're also seeing people who are trying to just maintain their everyday lives in the face of something that's so horrific and so unprecedented. You know, I can't imagine what those families are going through. I'm thinking of them more than the geopolitical ramifications, although obviously as a thinking person, I think about those too. I think we want to be careful.
And I think you, within your work, particularly Taste the Nation, we know you for Top Chef. We know, and the way in which you have brought food storytelling to us as an audience. Now you have started to, in a way, do that fine line of political divide, religious divide, cultural divide, but try and tell it through storytelling through food. And I'm interested as to what made you decide this is the story I want to tell right now, having been a producer, understood what it takes to be that person who can present in that fact as well.
Well, I mean, I came to do Taste the Nation after working with the ACLU for 5 or 6 years on immigrant issues, and I'm an immigrant myself. And so I felt, in that case, unlike commenting on what's going on over there, I felt I had a very fully formed opinion. And I felt like I had a lived experience that allowed me to take on the subject, as well as learning from human rights lawyers at the ACLU and familiarizing myself with other immigrant communities. And so, yes, Taste the Nation is really a political show. You know, it's just disguising.
Did you mean it to be?
Yes, it's very, yes. I mean, I meant for you to see and not see everything you saw and not saw in Taste the Nation. I mean, as much as I am in front of the camera on that show, most of the work that I do on that show is behind the camera, with our stories, with our episode producers, with our research, writing the, you know, voiceover, all of it. And I think that's been a real gift, to be able to hone muscles I didn't know I had, didn't know I wanted. And it's very gratifying. It's always really a privilege, and you just feel so lucky to be able to have an interest and a keen passion about something, and then actually be able to do it at work, at the level that you want to do. And I think that, to me, has been the greatest gift that Top Chef has given me, because I would never have Taste the Nation if I hadn't helped build Top Chef. And while Taste the Nation may be more aligned with my own interests or, you know, my own vision or taste level, Top Chef is also something that I'm really proud of, as far as, you know, what we've done in television and what we've done in food, and also what we've done just to affect how a generation of young people around the world, not just in America, think about their food. And I think they're much more knowledgeable
let's say, than I was at their age.
And thinking about how you've brought your narrative to bear, whether it be through television, then thinking, okay, well, it's a streaming product as well. And what goes into that viewpoint of this is the way in which this is the conduit to which I'm going to be telling my story?
Well, I think people are used to me speaking the language of food. That's what the viewing public in television is used to hearing me speak about. So it's sort of a bait and switch. You know, I'm giving you this beautiful, delicious, sensuous-looking food, but then I'm really, the person who made it has something to say, and Taste the Nation is really about giving my platform to people to tell their stories as they see fit. Of course, me and my team are there to help them shape it, and it's only a 30-minute show, so much winds up on the cutting room floor, but it's really about giving communities that have never had mainstream exposure and sort of an A-list treatment like that, you know. That's what we strive to do. And I always wanted to do that because I think those stories are interesting. And I think they're interesting for other people in this country.
How do you go and sell those stories? Whose ear do you need to gravitate towards or call towards you to say it needs to go on Hulu and it needs to go on in this particular manner, and how?
How do I sell it? Well, I mean, I do a lot of things like this, but I mean, not that much, but I think good programming finds its way. I mean, I sell it through building my social media platform. Like, I enjoy social media, but I don't have something to say every day, you know, but I have to post every day. And so I'm learning how to do that.
Does that frustrate you?
It's time consuming. Listen, for me, social media has been a very, very effective tool, not only to tell you about books that I've written or shows that I'm passionate about, but also to do my advocacy work. Whether it's with the United Nations or ACLU or Planned Parenthood or whatever. So for me, it was a megaphone that allowed me to talk about women's reproductive health. It was a megaphone that let me find my audience. I think it's really good for that because it's a way for you to communicate directly with the people who you think are your potential audience.
And then many monetize that audience. Have you ever thought about it being more than the deal you do with?
Yeah, I mean, you know, every once in a while, of course, I will do a brand partnership with, you know, Kind Bars or Boursin Cheese or, you know, whatever. But I don't really do them very often. And it's hard to turn them down, you know. It is. I'm a working person and, you know, I'm
with a daughter and
a life that I want to keep up, of course, and employees I'm responsible for. But I try not to do too many of them, and I try to do the ones that I would anyway say, hey, this is so delicious for free, because I think I want to make sure that when people come to my Instagram or whatever, that they know that they're not being tried to be sold something all the time. You know, and everybody gets it. They know. It's like, oh, she's got to deal with Kind. She's, you know. And it's fine if you just do it in an authentic way. Not, I hate that word, but like, just do it in an honest way and be clear about it. But even, you know, even when I put a beautiful, juicy trailer of Taste the Nation on my feed, sometimes it doesn't do well at all. And I'm always shocked because, of course, I've tinkered with the whole show so much. You know, I've been in the editing room, I've been in the color correction and all this stuff, but it's because it has this big giant Hulu branding on it. And so people are like, oh, it's just a commercial. So I think people now are super sensitized to it. And, you know, I'm not an influencer. I have a day job. Like, my job is making television and writing books or magazine articles, or usually books these days. But I started out as a features writer as well.
So go into what is asked of you to produce Taste the Nation. I mean, how hands-on are you? How have you had to span the gamut of all the kind of...
Oh, I'm very hands-on. I mean, I host the show, but way before I host the show, my producing partner, David, and I decide on what communities we're going to, and then we assign teams of producers for each of those communities, and we're in pre-production for a good 3 months. There's a lot of research that goes in to our stories, and we just don't go into immigrant homes or immigrant communities and then you learn about them and then rinse and repeat. Every episode also has a theme, whether it's you know, colonial self-hatred or internalized colonialism or food sovereignty or, how do I answer people who say that immigrants are only a drain on our economy? Well, I answer them by going to meet Cambodian Americans in Lowell, Massachusetts. And so all of that, we get those stories, we do the casting. Obviously, my show's really heavily casted because finding the right participants who can communicate their story is hard. I mean, most of the people you see on Taste the Nation, unless they're a big chef or something, they've never been on camera, they're not media trained, but they do have a compelling story to tell. And so once we get that cast, we go out there. I usually embed myself in each community for about a week. And, some of that is doing B-roll around the city and stuff. But
B-roll being video.
Being
right
just
audience
atmospheric shots of streets and details. And then so there's a team in pre-production, a team on location with me, and another team doing post-production to tell the editors what we saw, what we got, and I just kind of ping-pong between them. But along with my producing partner and some other producers, I go to every color correction because I'm very particular about how food looks on camera, and food can just not look appetizing. All you have to do is take it from one light to another, from inside to out, and it changes completely. So color correction and sound mixing is super important to me because I want to make sure we also preserve the cooking sounds, because I really think people eating is such a sensuous, sensorial experience. And I want, even though you can't taste the food on our show or any show, I want you to imagine you can taste it because of what you're hearing and what you're seeing and how all of us there are experiencing it. That is my job. And to use that food to tell bigger stories. So I do everything. I do the floors and the windows on Taste the Nation. I write the voiceover, and I have tons of help from very curious and dedicated producers. I will say that one of the greatest things that happened to me, I don't know if this is too much in the weeds of television, but after the first season came out, we got so many letters from people who just wanted to work on the show. And that's always
letters, not
joy. Well, emails, yes, emails. And also we get a lot of letters from teachers who say that they showed Taste the Nation to their middle school, high school, elementary school, college, university courses also, because they say that it's better than what you can get in most textbooks about Native Americans, about different communities, about Japanese internment in this country. And hopefully I'm doing it in a way that's fun and entertaining.
Yes.
And, you picked up on it earlier. That is the trick for me, to give you a lot of serious content that we think is important for everybody to know, but do it in a way that also doesn't take ourselves too seriously and has a light touch, and also talk about the joys of being in this community and all the ways that they have transcended their beginnings.
How, therefore, do you measure success? Is it by letters? Is it by, well, it's certainly not the Instagram that you post, whether it's got Hulu branding on it and people don't digest it as much as you hoped?
I measure success by how proud I am of the show, first and foremost. I'm making Taste the Nation because I wanted to watch a show like that. And for a long time, I really didn't know if anyone else did, because we pitched it to 6 or 7 networks, and they all turned it down. And so when we finally talked to Hulu, I was pretty browbeaten by then. I was like, maybe no one likes it, just me. And luckily for me, they really saw what I wanted to do. I think people thought it was going to be a lifestyle show, and I love those shows too, by the way. But I just didn't, at this point in my life and my career growth, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something that was more meaningful for me, and also that used all of the things I had learned, in advocating for immigrants with ACLU.
And what have you learned from other people in the industry? How helpful, how welcoming, how unwelcoming has it been?
I learned a lot from David, my co-producer, because he started as a director and now he has a production company. But he's taught me a lot about how to ask questions and how to also shoot something. I mean, when I get a break, I want to take a camera class, because whenever the camera guys are like, give me a 200, give me a 60, I'm like, what does that mean? And it's all different lenses, and that would be my next frontier that I'd like to conquer, because I think it's part of my job as a filmmaker to know that. I have learned so much. I learned so much from Sue Polino, who is our sound engineer and is just a wizard. And I never knew how much I would nerd out at just tinkering with sound, but I love it. And so I'm having the best time at work on Taste the Nation. It takes me 3 times as long to make than Top Chef. It's way more complex, but I love every minute of it. And so I will measure success when I get another season. That will be another measure of success. And Taste the Nation is also nominated for an Emmy. That's a way to measure success, which I'm very happy about. We're in some very stiff competition there. I think the list is quite impressive.
Well, congratulations on the nomination.
Thank you.
And thank you for talking us through just how much you do on the show.
Thank you.
I want to thank Padma Lakshmi for this great conversation. Thank you. And before you go, I'm pretty sure you're hungry. I'm certainly having looked at some of the exquisite pictures that you brought us from the show. It is time for a lunch break. So do all go outside, go grab some lunch. There's incredible food trucks and chefs that are outside. But do bring that food back if you'd like, because there's going to be a chance to watch in on a live podcast that's being recorded. Of course, The Town, Lucas Shaw's going to be here. So we'll pick up promptly 2 p.m. Issa Rae's going to be here live and in the flesh. But go satisfy your hunger. And thank you again, Padma.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Puck partner and host of The Town, Matthew Bellany, with Bloomberg's Lucas Shaw for a live podcast recording.